This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful afternoon. There is sunshine, which is fantastic. It's been a kind of grey, overcast couple of days lately, so nice to have a bit of sunshine for this afternoon. Hopefully that will bring lots of animals out and about. Now, for those of you that don't know who I am and who have joined us for the first time, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got Gert this afternoon, and we are coming to you live from South Africa's Djuma Game Reserve. And that means we want to hear from you. So remember, hashtag safariLIVE on Twitter or at FC on the YouTube chat to ask any questions that you may have about, well, wildlife and anything else that you might want to chat about, as long as it's kind of relevant to what you're seeing on the screen, and we should try to answer as much as possible. Now, I'm not the only one out. Obviously, James is going to be, well, obviously somebody else will be out, but James is going to be joining me out on drive this afternoon, so it'll be the two of us. I think he's going to go and head down to the south of the reserve, and I'm going to be doing the northern side because I'm going to be looking for Tingana this afternoon. There was some sawing this morning, and then there was also some alarm calls during the day near Gallego Pan, and so I'm going to try and see if I can pick up some sort of sign of him. The problem is that there's still guests in camp, so I can't actually go to Gallego Pan and really start to work that area just yet. I'm going to have to wait and just kind of let them get out before I can go there. So I'm just doing a big loop round just to see if maybe I can pick up some tracks for him somewhere along the way. Maybe there's going to be some tracks walking across a road somewhere. I suspect though that he's lying up in the drainage actually very, very close to the pan, just on the northern side of the pan. So what we might do is we might take this and go around to Mvubu and then come into that old hyena den, and then there's a 2-track there which I might just take a quick walk on, see if I can find any tracks, because I think he might be lying somewhere there. The alarm call sounded very, very close to the camp, so we'll see how we go. Right, now I was saying that I'm not the only one out. James is out, he's ready to go, and he wants to say hello, so let's ship you off to him.
Hello, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Sunday Sunset Safari Drive here on Djuma Private Game Reserve on the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry. On camera is Sebastian Rombini, the greatest French Gabonese drone pilot in history. Well, he was until David crashed the drone, of course. Now he is grounded. That is a story for another day. My plan today was to sort of head towards the south and see what was going on, but I must just tell you that very conveniently and very pleasantly, Djuma has asked us to go and check the den. So we're just going to go and have a quick pop in there and have a look. So Michelle, who's the Djuma general manager, said please would we go and have a quick look. So we're just going to go and have a quick look and see what's happening down there. We probably won't get as close as we did yesterday because obviously we didn't know where it was, and so we'll see if we can get a sort of distant view and see what's going on. And everyone is very excited about this, of course. Please do talk to us. You can ask us any questions you like, of course, on the hashtag safariLIVE or the YouTube chat stream. It's a very pleasant day out, I must say. 28 degrees or so, 83. Still no rain, and it is depressing. It's starting to take on this kind of a feel of the 15-16 drought season. There is a lot of rain predicted for next week, but what normally happens is that the rain is predicted for 7 days' time, and as you get closer and closer to the day, so it lessens and lessens until it just doesn't appear anymore. Why they are unable at this stage to model that sort of thing, despite all we know about the weather, I'm not really sure, but there it is. Yes, Mary J, I'm not sure why this has come as such an enormous surprise to you, but yes, there is a general manager at Djuma. Did you think it ran itself? These lodges all require quite substantial amounts of management. They've got large back-of-house teams. In fact, Londolozi, for example, where I used to work, has a staff of over 300 people, and that's to service 60 guests. So not only is there a general manager, but there are a lot of other underling managers as well. Something about a lodge environment that becomes sort of, well, like a circus without managers. Gina, you say you're glad I'm back in front of camera rather than behind it. Well, in one respect, I'm quite pleased with that. I feel like you're happy to see me, which is great. On the other hand, I feel perhaps that my camera work was substandard, and therefore you're rather relieved to see that I will not have my hands on the camera during the course of the afternoon. I'm not sure I want to know which one of those exactly it was. Okay, we're going to try for a view here, and we're going to go quite a lot further away from it than we were yesterday, just because we'll assess that, well, we need to assess exactly how friendly Tundi's feeling, if she is there. And we're going to keep our voices nice and low and try and let this recalcitrant old bag of a car. Yeah, I think let's do that. Let's go across to Tristan and let us get into the sighting. See you shortly, I hope.
Well, I hope so too, James. I hope that you'll get to see them, that they'll be there, or at least Tundi will be there. Obviously, if she's not around, then they can't be viewed, but hopefully she'll be sitting there. I suspect, though, knowing Tundi, she's already hungry again and probably out on the prowl if she was there this morning. So it'll be interesting to know, and wonder if maybe she didn't somehow get a piece of that impala somewhere. That would also be quite interesting if she managed to somehow get a bit of it back from the hyenas and stash it somewhere. Sometimes leopards can get that, especially with, we saw it with Hosanna many times where he would actually get his kills back from hyenas after they'd stolen it, once they'd eaten a lot, and get the little piece and put it in a tree. So maybe she still has some somewhere around there, but hopefully James will see them or the cubs or her or something around that area. It's a good place to be scratching. Mary Elizabeth, yes, most definitely. So they know that coming out of the den when Mom's not there is dangerous. And you find yesterday, if you watched her, I mean, obviously when you guys came to us, she literally had just arrived at the den and it didn't take long. But when we saw her, she was walking along, and as she was coming down, she was starting to call already, and she was starting to make this little chuffing sound, so like that. And that talks to the little cubs to say it's okay, they can come out, and then only will they come out. And so she'll call them out. Otherwise, they just stay inside there. They know that they mustn't move when things are moving around there. It's kind of just hardwired into them. I suppose instinct is what you would call it. And so they don't move too much at all if Mom's not around. Obviously, as they get older, so they become a lot more kind of mobile. But when they're still very small like this, up until I find around sort of 4 months, they typically are quite happy. Well, they hide very, very well. From about 4 months on, they start to become a little bit more playful, and they'll go and chase a lizard or an insect or something very, very close to the den. But if there's any movement or any sound, then they run back to the den and stay inside there. But at the age that they're at now, they're still going to be very, very, very susceptible to a lot of things. And so you're going to find that they're going to probably hunker down and not move too much at all when Mom is not around. Just checking a termite mound over there that I know Tingana sometimes likes to sit on, so we're just making sure he's not sitting there somewhere. JW, do they grade the roads? So yes, they do. You'll find at the moment the roads are not in great condition in some places, and that's because it's the time of year that we're at. To grade roads, you need a little bit of water, and so generally best time to do it is after the first sort of rains that can just soak the surface, and that will help you kind of get everything sorted. Also, it obviously requires a big grader. Djuma, generally they drag the roads with tires, so big tractor tires, and basically what that does is it just drags sand into the holes and kind of flattens everything out, so they don't get graded per se, but if you go on to the main sort of cut lines, those are all graded quite regularly, as you can see by the bouncing that we're doing now. Not much grading on this little rocky section, but the main roads are all graded properly and are done generally, like I say, just at the start of the summer and then around the end of the summer, and that normally keeps the roads okay throughout the year. I mean, they're not supposed to be like a tar road that is super smooth and easy to drive on, and it's still, at the end of the day, you know, sand and rain and things and wind will deteriorate these roads, and I quite like it when the roads are a little bit kind of uneven. It adds to the adventure of things, if you ask me. I mean, our roads here are magnificent in comparison to some of the parts of Africa that I've been into. You go into some parts of Botswana and Zimbabwe and places like that, and the roads are more just like little tracks through the bush rather than actually nice, clean, you know, roads that have been dragged with tires. So we are fortunate that we drive nice roads in the Sabi Sands, and that goes for the whole of the Sabi Sands. Every lodge is pretty good about keeping their roads in fairly decent condition. It makes it smoother, I suppose, for guests. You know, at the end of the day, if you're sitting in the back row, if you've ever been on a safari, you'll know the back seat of one of these cruisers or something like that, or a Land Rover, is incredibly bumpy. So if the roads are not good, you get flung around a little bit in the back there. So much nicer if the roads are smooth for those that sit in the back of the vehicle. Right, so no tracks or indication that I can see of Tingana coming out of these blocks. I think that he's still lying somewhere close. I mean, we know that he was full bellied yesterday, so his need to go and find food is not huge. And if he's got a bit of water close by, and we know obviously at Galago Pan there's water, so maybe, you know, he's just kind of lying up somewhere around here. Okay, I'm going to just go and check down towards the old hyena den. In the meantime, though, back across to James. Sounds like, unfortunately, no sign of Tundi at the den, and so I wonder what his next move will be.
We didn't really get a view. I mean, I got a view with my binoculars. Sorry, I'm just going to brake the car quickly and then burn it. I got a view with my binoculars, and I don't think she looked very relaxed. I'm going to try for a slightly further away view, which I might be able to get from around the other side. Excuse my loss of temper there, but really, driving me mad. So many wires. So basically, where we were yesterday was pretty close. She led us there, so we didn't worry about it. Tried for a slightly further away view now. Just saw her through the trees. Didn't look too happy. So we're going to try for a slightly further view from this side, and if we don't get one, we're going to leave her. Yes, for sure wild dogs would be a threat to Tundi's cubs. Valentina, I nearly called you Vuyatelo, which wouldn't make any sense at all. Valentino, any predator within the sort of top 5 predators, even a jackal would be a danger to leopard's cubs, I think. Even a honey badger would be a danger to them. Just about any predator would be a danger to them. I mean, we know that there's a female honey badger living on this drainage line somewhere. We've seen her quite often. I don't think we're going to be able to get a view from here. Take care, the zoned off area is just basically, you can drive the roads, but you can't go down into the drainage line to try and have a look. So we've been asked specifically to go and have a look, so, well, we're not going to say no. And as I've always said, you know, for a film crew, one small film crew like this to gently make their way in there once a day to go and see what's going on, it's not going to have any effect. But the reason that they zone them off is that obviously there are 1,000 tourists coming through this area, thank goodness for them, but you just can't have all those vehicles, okay? You just can't have all those vehicles coming through a den site like this and making it busy. And so we're quite lucky that we obviously have a good relationship with Djuma, and they've said to us, just go and have a look and see what's going on. So we said okay. Like I say, I don't think we're going to get anything from here. And obviously you can't kind of gently sneak down towards the den site because these cars are so, well, I mean, they're cars. Alright, while we see if we can get in here, let's go across to Trist and the giraffe.
We are with the giraffe. It's a giraffe that we all know very well, the one that's got the leg wound on it. Well, not the leg wound, but the leg parasites that are around its back leg. This giraffe has been hanging around for a number of months lately, and so we've seen it quite regularly in the leg. While it looks bad, it's better than it initially looked, but still can't be very comfortable at all. I mean, you can see it's still seeping, and that will be the oxpeckers also causing huge amounts of issues there by pecking at it and basically breaking that open and trying to consume the blood that will then leak out. Remember, oxpeckers, while they do eat parasites and are good in terms of helping animals and cleaning them up, they also are birds that drink blood, and so if they can find a wound and open it out, they'll prefer to kind of go after that than you know, something like a tick. So you'll find that there's a lot of kind of irritation that takes place by oxpeckers. And there was some oxpeckers on them. They seem to have flown off. You may not have heard them chirping just now. When there's one on top of its head. Anyway, cruising around and just picking up any little things around the top of their head there. They often like to sit up there, although this giraffe is giving it a proper roller coaster ride with it feeding and moving its head all over the place. It's making life a little bit more tricky for those oxpeckers. Now a lot of you are feeling sorry for the giraffe and its wound. It's not very nice, is it? But it seems to be okay. I mean, it's a healthy individual, and we've been watching it for, like I say, for the last couple of months, and it's not like it limps. It doesn't seem to have too much in the way of pain. I mean, it can't be comfortable, but it doesn't seem to show it. You know, normally when an animal's in discomfort, it will hobble or it will limp, whereas this giraffe just walks normally, and bar probably the irritation of flies and oxpeckers, maybe it's actually not as painful as we think it is. And the rest of the body is in perfect condition. You know, the neck and kind of body weight of this animal is all good. But you can see how they disappear. Everyone often asks me, you know, why don't you see giraffe so easily? Well, there's a perfect example. The giraffe is right there, but its camouflage is incredibly good when it gets behind things. The broken pattern that they have will mean that you often get this situation where they kind of walk past something or behind something, and you don't pick them up. The best thing to look for in spotting giraffe is their whites of their ears on the back. That's normally where you can kind of pick it up and kind of see them through the bushes. But this particular giraffe is almost hidden from view, as you can see, kind of moving in the background. Sassy Kathy, this giraffe will probably live for as long as its lifespan entails. I mean, obviously there's predators and things out there, so you can never be 100% sure. But that wound there is not going to shorten its lifespan too much, unless we go through a period where it's extreme drought or something like that, and this giraffe really struggles to kind of find decent food. Then you might find that the parasites will weaken it further. But that kind of wound like that is not going to cause this giraffe just to kind of die at a young age, or for it to be more susceptible to predation. Ultimately, the animal is moving fine, and adrenaline shot of being chased by lions would allow this giraffe to run just as well as any other giraffe. So, yeah, I mean, I don't expect it would cause too many issues in terms of its lifespan. Yeah, I think it'd be absolutely fine with a wound like that. Obviously, if we're talking about breaking of legs and things like that, very, very different. So, you know, it just depends on what the leg wound is. Alright, so the reason we're actually in this area, we bumped into this giraffe, but we're busy tracking Tingana. There's tracks going to the pan, and Aubrey's got tracks coming away from the pan. So I suspect he's lying up somewhere where we are now, just in one of these little shady thickets. I can hear a go-away bird making a bit of noise. So we're just going to quickly check towards that area. This is always a good section to look in, because he loves to walk around this area. It's one of my favorite places to look for Tingana tracks. is here. So there's old tracks, like I say, going to the pan, and I'm trying to see if there's any fresher tracks coming back up this way. Looks like he did walk here. Yes, he's walked back our way, so he's already come through this section, so we need to just turn around and follow them back up. I suspect he's gone a little bit to the north of us here. There's a nice little area that he likes to lie in. We often find him. Remember just now I was saying there's a termite mound he likes to lie on? Now that termite mound is kind of on this game path. So if you follow this game path along, you eventually get to that termite mound. So I'm pretty sure he's just going to follow it along. Lions ate my mum. Difficult to say if Thandi has convinced both Muwati and Tingana that those cubs are theirs, because, well, we haven't seen any interaction with her and those males, or any interaction with the males and the cubs, or anything like that. So very, very difficult to say. Her movement to me suggests that she's moving them away from Tingana more than towards him, but that might just be coincidence completely. We might have just misread that whole situation. And it's very, very possible that, she has bumped into him at some point and has convinced him. But I think it's too early for us to know for sure whether that's the case. I think we're going to need to spend a little bit more time with her and obviously see the boys and their movements to figure it out. Right, now, there's a dike over here on our left, so I don't think he's walked there. I'm trying to just see which path he took, because there's a number of paths that lead away from here. There's hyenas. Alright. I think what I'm going to need to do is maybe take a little walk and just see which way his track actually goes at some point. It's going to be the easiest way. Okay, while I do that and while I figure out exactly what's going on here, let's send you back across to James as he, I think, searches for Thandi.
I'm afraid we've had no luck. We just can't see her, and the only option really is to try and drive in there and get above the den, but I think that'll really upset her, and I don't think it's worthwhile. So I think we'll just leave her, I'm afraid. We know she's there. We don't know how many cubs are there. We assume they're both fine. So I'm afraid that's going to be it. We could push it, but it would be pushing it. I'm not sure about the sexes of Thandi's cubs. We certainly had, I think, confirmation of a female. Don't know about the other one, and so I'm not really sure. You just can't drive quietly through these stick-strewn plains, I'm afraid, which makes it doubly difficult. Anyway, let's go for a drive around, see what else we can see. There's some water pigs, which will want to be staying away from this particular area. Naturally, they're running away as fast as their little water pig legs can carry them. I think about 6 weeks, Africa Addicted Girl. Seb, can you even see them? Or was that just a waste of time? Yeah, there we go, running away. Africa Addicted Girl, yeah, 6 weeks or so. As soon as they can come out of the den, she'll probably start taking small bits of meat to them. Beautiful stick and warthog sighting. Warthogs are starting to look pretty ropey, which is a bit sad. Obviously we all love warthogs. I don't know anybody who doesn't love warthogs. and they are susceptible to droughts. The other odd thing about the climate this year, I have sort of said this before, is that we've had really high winds. But, you know, the wind has been consistently high almost every day. It feels like living at the coast here now. Every midday we sort of do our exercises or go for a run, and you're running into a headwind all the time. And it feels very much like being down at the coast. And I cannot remember experiencing wind like this in this area before. It kind of gets windy around August time, but you don't expect it to get windy now. Jonathan, you want to know if I've ever thought about becoming a weatherman? No, Jonathan, I've never thought about becoming a meteorologist, although I have to say that I think my powers of prediction are probably about as good as many of the weathermen who pretend to do it by some form of science. I'm trying to think of an example of something similar. You know, where apparently there are all sorts of ways of deciding how things work, and then you get somebody to do it, predict whatever it is with a coin toss, and they're just as successful. The stock market, actually, Louise, you're actually exactly right. It's a very good example. Thousands of variables going on in the stock market, and, you know, it's basically gambling. Basically gambling. And if you're lucky, well, then you get something. If you're not lucky, then you don't. And people get enormous credit for getting very lucky on the back end of zero skill. My mother always said, and my mother is a little bit like me in so much as she's well, not shy of a hard judgment on somebody, not based on a great deal of fact. Anyway, she's a tax practitioner, and so she's got a lot of clients who are, or she had a lot of clients who were stockbrokers, and they were normally filthy rich people. And she'd say, well, of course, you know, he's very rich, but he's not very bright. She actually suggested I should be a stockbroker. I've never thought of it till now, but maybe she was suggesting I wasn't very bright either. That's a bit rough, Mum. Kirsten is agreeing. She thinks my mother thinks I'm dim-witted. Sorry, I got how to the World Day Konze Zondorf rule, and I don't really understand what that means. Oh, how do we know they will obey the Zondorf rule? We don't. We have no idea if they will or not. And in many respects, I suspect quite strongly that they wouldn't. I suspect that there are a number of people driving around on the this reserve and the ones next to it, that if they knew where the den was, would pull in there very happily and say nothing about it. Certainly has happened all over the place where I've worked before. We would see their tracks, yes. Let's do that black bell. Yeah, Samantha, you're amazed that I'm chewing a stick. I'm chewing a stick to get my own back. I'm so sick of sticks right now. I think it's because none of the sticks here are producing any green flushes. That is just a bog standard drongo, is it? No, I don't think it is. It's got a black eye. I bet it's a bog standard drongo. As soon as it turns round, she'll reveal itself as a bog standard drongo. There are 3 black birds that you can get here: the bog standard fork-tailed drongo, the black cuckoo shrike, and the black flycatcher. Now the black flycatcher, oh, this one's just had a dump. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see what it had been eating. And it is a drongo, I think. It's certainly hunting like a drongo, and there comes its friend. Yes. Here's the drongo. Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? Is everyone overwhelmed with excitement at the sight of that drongo? Well done, everybody. And a few of you asking where you can see my Sunday sketch. Well, this week's episode is on drawing a rhinoceros. You can see it on Instagram or on Facebook. And there you will learn how to draw the white rhinoceros, Ceratithemium simum. Alright, Tristan is back on his vehicle. I'm not sure where we're going to go, so we'll try and make a plan while you're gone.
Well, I'm glad you're back on the vehicle. Well, I'm back on the vehicle, and that James will try and make a plan. We're busy trying to follow Tingana's tracks. The reason why I'm following with a car and not on foot is because he'll just run away from us if we follow on foot, and he'll not kind of stay still, whereas if I follow on a vehicle the kind of game path that he's following, then I should be able to find him, hopefully, with the car, and then he won't run away, which will make life a lot easier. Now his track should be kind of on our left hand side. It was hugging this drainage all the way along coming north, so I'm just checking all the sort of likely little thickets, if you want to call it that, where he could potentially be lying, all the places that he normally inhabits. I hope I didn't miss his track on the fire break. I suppose it's possible, but I'm expecting to find them coming. You see there's a big game path that will join shortly now with us, and I'm expecting his track to be on there. It depends where you are. I mean, here in the Sabi Sand, such a huge road network, they use the roads a lot. It's very easy for them to move around on the road, so they're constantly following the roads here in the Sabi Sands. In other areas where they're like the Mara, then game paths are used more than the roads, but both are very good things for a leopard. They like the ability to follow a path of least resistance, so an area where there's not too much in the way of... Just checking if his tracks have come. It doesn't look like he's come this far. I wonder if he's not lying in this drainage line somewhere. I think that might be what's happened, because I don't see his tracks now anywhere here. Ellies have made this a lot harder than it used to be. It used to be quite nice to get through here, but now the Ellies have arrived. It's been tricky. So yeah, it just depends where you are. But yeah, I mean, they use both, I suppose, but the roads are probably more than anything else for these guys. Just gonna go slowly because of the rocks. "20 years ago, would I ever use an electric vehicle?" Yeah, I suppose I would. I mean, I'm a bit on the fence with them, and I'll tell you why. I just, from watching them and just seeing the reaction of animals, sometimes the animals get a little bit of a fright because of how quiet they are, and then, they're used to hearing things coming, and when they can't hear something coming, then they get a little bit kind of spooked by it. So, that's the only thing that puts me off. But I think the concept of being able to hear and to kind of pick up so much more with a quiet car is amazing. I would imagine that the electric vehicles, you should be able to find more animals, and just because you're going to be hearing them when you normally wouldn't. When we drive these cars, we don't hear much. If a lion roars or a leopard soars or an alarm call or something like that, it's very tricky for us to actually be able to pick any of that up, just because of the fact that the engine makes too much noise. So in an electric vehicle, you get a very different ability to actually hear those things and pick those things up. So a bit on the fence with them, but yeah, I would give it a bash, see how it goes and see what it's like. I mean, like I said, I think there's huge pros to it. I'm not sure. I wonder if the animals will get used to it. I mean, animals reacted to these cars, and if animals are not from areas that we know, then they react quite heavily to our engines. You know, if it's something that comes out of the Kruger, they can sometimes be shy. I mean, look at Luna. Luna's a prime example of how shy animals can be. So, you know, maybe electric vehicles are much less invasive for an animal like that and can get them more habituated to it. I don't know. But I mean, I think it's always good to try things and then formulate your own opinion once you've tried them. I don't think it's good to bash something without actually having any sort of knowledge about it or any ability to kind of judge it, you know. So yeah, I suppose the answer to that is yes, I would try it, just to see what it's like. Right, Tingana, you didn't come this way, which means that you are lying somewhere under a bush, which is going to make life a little on the tricky side to find him, but I'm sure we'll get him. At some point also, if we don't get him now, as it starts to cool down and get darker, so he's going to start sawing and making a little bit more noise, and so hopefully then we'll be able to kind of pick him up if we don't find him now. But I suspect that he's lying in that drainage line that we've been following all the way along. He's just found himself a nice comfy spot that's shady and has gotten himself in there. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Not too many other animals past that dike. It seems as though it was quite quiet when it came to animals, so I'm wondering if maybe that's where he is. Notice how often do elephants block the roads by pushing down trees or affect the roads by pushing down trees? Depends on how many ellies are around. When you've got a lot of elephants, it's daily. I mean, it's constantly trees being pushed over the roads that have got to be kind of either cut or moved. But when there's not many elephants around, like now at the moment, there's not a huge population of elephants here at the moment. They're not often at all. I mean, obviously, if they're not here, they're not going to cause damage. But if they are in the area, then invariably you end up with a branch over the road somewhere. They just push a little bit, and you know, especially if they're feeding on the side, and kind of blows back onto the road, or bits pushed back onto the road. Tingana often likes to sit here on this Tambuti Dam wall, but he's not there today. So I'm pretty sure he must still be. It's been a giraffe since we were last here. Pretty sure that he's somewhere back there. I wonder. Tingana, where are you, boy? See, he could be anywhere. So in this little offshoot, because this is another little drainage that comes from that 2-track that we were on just now, or that game path, and I know that the leopards use it as well. Not as much as what the Djuma Pride does. When the Djuma Pride's around, they like this little Tambuti thicket, but a leopard could easily lie in this as well, and you wouldn't know unless you can see in it. It would be quite tricky. Alright, well, we're going to carry on and see if we can find this Tingana. He's giving us a hard time. Sounds like James has been given a hard time by Tundi, and see what his plans are now that I think he's officially given up.
Yes, I have officially given up. We might try as it gets a bit darker and see if she's not a bit more accommodating. But I don't... we'll see. We just don't want to push her, and I know none of you at all will be vaguely disappointed or disappointed in me if I say that I think that, you know, we should probably leave it for a day or two. Only after about sort of 8 months, but you know, Marcel, it takes a while, at least, you know, it's not one day that it happens, so it happens over an extensive period. So from 6 weeks they'll start climbing, and you know, when she leaves them, you might find them in a tree, and much more likely to find them out of a den and in a tree at 8 weeks. And then come, say, 4 months, they'll be moving around a bit in the area where she's left them, but you probably wouldn't be able to view them. They'd probably try and get out of the way, or you wouldn't try and go in there, so we don't know how much they'd be moving around. And then come 8 months to a year, she'll struggle to find them when she wants to go and fetch them and feed them. So, I mean, the process of independence from mum, I suppose, starts as early as, you know, they can climb trees, although it's almost imperceptible for those first few months, and then it just increases until eventually they can't stand the sight of each other. I suppose it's a little bit like with human beings, you know. A child begins to become more and more independent from its parents from the day it can walk, really. It doesn't need to be in constant contact with its mother. By the time it's 6, it goes off and plays without its mother very happily. Yes, it comes back for food, which is totally normal and expected. And then by the time it's 13, well, in theory, it could be almost independent. But it will come back home every so often, and then, you know, by 18, you could expect some kind of full independence. And I know there are lots of jokes going around right now about people who stay at home until they're 40 or 50, and, well, you know, they're normally exceptions, sort of, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So you can't really say that at any one time a human being becomes independent from its parents. And in the case of human beings, I guess the difference is that we are a social species, whereas leopards just aren't really. Terrell, it's the same species, different subspecies. Leopards in India are also Pantheropardus, and I suspect quite strongly that if you introduced an African leopard into India, it would survive very happily. They have many of the same characteristics. They behave in very similar ways. They're just as able to live in the wild and, in fact, in urban environments as they are here. I'm not sure. I think you'll probably find the culture of hunting in Africa in general has led to fewer and agriculture, in fact, strongholds for leopards near our urban areas, unlike in India, where there are lots of urban areas where leopards actually live almost in them. But it's the same species. It's the same species all the way from the Cape Fold Mountains down in the southwest of South Africa, up through Africa, through the Middle East, down into India, up through Russia, at least up through various parts of Southeast Asia, and then into Russia. Vladivostok area, the far east of Russia, is it the chagra, Seb, the black-crowned chagra, just on this log. No, log right here in front of us, just to the left. That's him. Zoom.
Yeah, okay, got it.
You got him. Now you see he's just to the left. He's under. There he is. You got him now.
Thank you.
Yeah, now he's to the right. We seldom get these guys on screen like this. Beautiful. So it's the same leopard species all the way through there, just different subspecies, and they vary in size considerably. In the Cape Fold Mountains, Tlalamba would be considered an enormous male. In the Middle East, there's probably, I think, they're halfway between that size and the size of our leopards here. Indian leopards, I think, are pretty similar sized, and I think Amur leopards may be slightly smaller. I think, are ours the biggest? Might be the Amur leopards that are slightly bigger. And they're all the same species. They look very similar. The one very interesting thing for me when I went to Russia to go and do a little evaluation of a project, a tiger project and leopard project there, was that everyone told me that the tigers and the leopards don't live together, that tigers exclude the leopards. So unlike here, where leopards and lions will happily, well, not happily at all, but have eked out a niche within each other's territories or within each other's niches, unlike that, it doesn't happen where there are tigers. And I suspect it's because, if it's true, I've never read anything about it, but I suspect it's because they're both similar kinds of predators. Alice, we potentially get strawberry leopards here, but they are not. It's a very rare kind of race or coloration that you find. So I've never seen a strawberry leopard. I think that strawberry leopard is somewhere near Blue Mountain Inn up on the escarpment, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yes, and old Tara, who was a Wild Earth presenter for a while, is doing a PhD on leopards, and I think in the area where she's doing her study, I think there's a strawberry leopard, or 2 or 3. The strawberry leopard is basically the leopard equivalent of a redhead, of a ginger. Oh no, Gremlins General, leopards in India speak Hindi or Tamil, whereas here they speak Shangaan or English. So that really would, Indian leopards would struggle to communicate with leopards from, leopards from India and South Africa would very much struggle to talk to each other. In seriousness, yeah, I think they'll figure it out pretty quickly. The olfactory, I don't think they probably don't smell very different from each other, I'm sure. Their territorial markings probably smell quite similar. Their calls are quite similar. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they'd understand each other. It might take a little bit of a while to habituate. It's a good question. Regional accents and all that. Apparently those of you who are ginger and on chat are now identifying yourselves. Well, that's good. You must have a club. I believe, I'm told that you don't have souls, that ginger people don't have souls, and so you will need some solidarity as far as that goes. Kirsten, of course, is a ginger, and she is talking to me in my ear, and she says that was mean. I got it from a very reputable TV show called, what was it? I don't remember what it was. No, it wasn't Jerry Springer, it was much more reputable than that. It was, I think it was the Catherine Tate show. The Catherine Tate show showed said the gingers don't have souls, I think. There's a bush ginger. There we are. 2, in fact. Beautiful colours. The Nyala. We don't call that a strawberry Nyala, though. We just call it a Nyala. But essentially it's the same kind of thing, really. Kirsten says that this Nyala has a soul. Well, no, I think gingers, other than humans, have souls, yes. Well, maybe strawberry leopards don't, I don't know. Please don't anyone take offence, I'm just joking, I promise. I don't really think that gingers don't have souls. Other than Kirsten. Kirsten says she's already taken offence. Where's Emma? Emma's also a ginger. Oh, there we go. It's on South Park that they that they discovered gingers don't have souls. That great documentary known as South Park. Emma apparently has gone to her room to cry over the fact that she doesn't have a soul. She thought until right now that she did. I know that's difficult. The lovely sound of the summer cicadas. And the cuckoos have all started. Not right now. But when I was sitting in my room today, I could hear the Diedrichs going. and also a common cuckoo. No, not a common cuckoo, an African cuckoo going coo, 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 coo.
The Diedrichs go to Central Africa, James?
The Diedrichs, I think, go to Central Africa. Sebastian?
What
I will do,
familiar to me from Gabon.
I will check for you. You say you've heard it, you think in
Sounds
Gabon.
familiar from Gabon.
Gabon. In case you're wondering, everybody, the reason that we say Gabon is because Brent Leo Smith went to Gabon once and came back with more knowledge of Gabon than anybody's ever had before. And he informed Sebastian, who is from Gabon, that he didn't know what he was talking about, and in fact the way to say Gabon was Gabon. So Sebastian stared at him blankly for a couple of hours. Right, the Diedrichs cuckoo, it is a common intra-African migrant, yes. So you will see it
and hear it
in Gabon. You must say it properly.
Good. That's why it sounds so familiar.
Yeah. Gabon. All right. Oh, there's a little lamb. Or a calf. A calf. Tristan apparently has walked home. Yeah, that's what Kirsten said. I don't know what that means, other than he's walked home. He's off the vehicle tracking, and given his general success rate, I don't think we're going to begrudge him that, are we? We're going to drive off towards the east now and then head down to Chitwa and see what's going on down there. There's always a chance, you see, that once a leopardess, for example, is now, Tandy's denning over there. She won't be coming down here, I don't think, very much to mark that Guchava or, you know, some other leopard doesn't smell, and so could kind of extend slightly to the southeast of this reserve. Let's go and see. So 50, I can do 684 bird whistles. So I'm working on 685, which is the blue-footed booby of the Galapagos. I don't know, Sir 50, how many bird whistles I can do. I don't do them very well. I can do the ones that have actual whistles, I'm not too bad at. But the ones with croaks and screeches and rattles and sort of bells and that sort of thing, I can't really do them. For example, I've never heard a decent woodland kingfisher. Ollie wasn't bad at the woodland kingfisher. He was pretty good. But I can't do the woodland kingfisher. Other than to go chip, brrr, which is obviously just a human being doing it. It doesn't sound like a bird, does it? No. The blue-footed booby is actually a bird, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. Sebastian, look at that magnificent sighting I've created for you. Behind the wall of sticks that I've placed in front of you, there's a steenbok underneath that balanites tree. Ah, magnificent. Hey? Look at that. Let me shift backwards. There we go, that's perfect. Great. It's the sticks that I really wanted. Let me go forward a bit. No, we'll get him. There we go. You've got to be brave with... Oh, no, no. Aaron, my favourite type of stick is any kind of stick that's lying on the ground. I'm really not a fan of sticks at the moment. That is a male steenbok, in case the dangly bits between its back legs were confusing you. I find that a little strange, I must say. Normally these antelope only have their testicles sort of hanging below them like that around about when they want to mate, but I can't believe any steenbok with half a brain is trying to breed at this time of year. You know, they would have already mated, and I would expect that the ewes are expecting babies. I could be quite wrong though. Alright, Tristan is back on his car. He's driving. Maybe he had some success.
We are back in the car and we are driving. Tried to walk quite quickly. Sorry, James, that I left you hanging for a while. I followed his track. He turned into the drainage, and then there's birds going crazy in the drainage line. So I quickly went back to the car to rather take the car there than to walk there, because if he's moving, which is generally when birds do make a lot of noise, then he's going to see me and he's going to trot, and it's going to be impossible to pick him up again. So I'm going to rather try and attempt it with the vehicle. But the go-away birds have been calling now for a good sort of 15 minutes. There's Franklin's also alarm calling. There was a squirrel. So I think that's where he is. So I think he just went across the drainage. So I've got to cross the drainage myself, which is easier said than done. It's much easier if you're a leopard, that's for sure. Being a Land Rover certainly doesn't make crossing drainage lines as easy as a leopard going across them. Hopefully though, we'll find him shortly. It'd be nice if we do. Problem is, we've got to spot him in all of this as well. So, his last track comes pretty much in the direction that we're going to travel now. We're going to head straight north, kind of and intercept where those birds were calling. I'm hoping if I turn off, we'll be able to hear them again. Like I say, the go-away birds have been making a lot of noise. The Franklins, not so much. They squawked a few times, and that's typical with Franklins. They get a fright, make a bit of noise, and then they keep quiet. Whereas the go-away birds, as long as they can see something and they're perched in that area, they'll make quite a bit of noise. So let's see if we can find him here somewhere. There's been lots of leopard activity though. There's tracks for females here as well, or female should I say, moving around. It's obviously because of Gallagher Pan, so much going on. So the calls are coming from roughly this kind of area. I stopped on the other side of the drainage on our right hand side, and there's a drainage on our left hand side, and I know that he sometimes goes into that one, so I'm just going to turn off now and just see if I can hear anything again. Now would be a good time for an impala or a nyala to bark. I think there's a duiker on the other side there. Is that a duiker? No, it's just grass. Everyone's gone quiet. Sorry, Curse, my earpiece fell out when we went through that bush just now. If you can just repeat that. Hello. Somewhere here. It's gone quiet now, though. Diana, what is the loudest bird in the Sabi Sands? A hardy-dar ibis and an Egyptian goose. The two of them are on equal footing in many respects. They both can make an absolute racket, the two of them. So I would say those are probably the loudest ones for me. I mean, I don't know in terms of actual decibels, which is the loudest. But that's just from, I suppose they just make the most noise. Maybe that's why we hear them. But an Egyptian goose and hardy-dar can make a serious amount of noise. And it carries quite far. The one bird that carries probably further is a ground hornbill. But I think that's just purely based on the fact that it's such a low sort of tone, or what would wavelength would be very, very low. And so it's easy to kind of hear it over big distances. I find high-pitched sounds typically don't travel nearly as well in the bush. I'm going to make sure I don't use my arm to a branch there, as low-pitched sounds. Tingana, where did you go, boy? Somewhere here. Our leopard is sitting. There's the Franklins. Expecting just to see this flat cat. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not really looking for his head up. Wonder if he's not just got his head down and is sleeping somewhere in the drainage line. But There's the francolins that are making noise are these ones that I've just seen now. We're in the, like I say, the right spot for them. I don't see any of the go-away birds. Nothing on this termite mound. He's not going to be lying in the sun either. He's going to be lying in the shade. I think. I mean, you never can be 100% sure with the leopard. Sometimes you say they're going to be lying in the shade, and then you find them in the brightest of bright sun. See, now we're getting a little too far north for where those calls were. Just going to turn off again and listen. Quiet now. Now, of course, go-away birds can make a noise for people, but they were too far to be shouting at me. I was a long way off when they were starting and only kind of heard them faintly, so it wouldn't have been for me. And Chris says you guys can hear the wind. Well, yes, there's a bit of a breeze blowing at the moment. All still quiet. Okay, well, in that case then, what I'm going to do is going to just do a loop to Gallagher Pan, and I'm just going to stay in the area and try and see if I can pick up some more sound. Without being off the vehicle for long periods, it's going to be very difficult to find him. And like I say, even finding him on foot though doesn't always work. So I'm going to kind of do some loops in the area and hope that he makes a bit of noise or a more reliable alarm call comes through. In the meantime though, I'll send you back across to James.
Little bee-eater, wait till he'll come back to the same perch. They're very reliable. He's found himself a beetly. Doesn't look like a bee. That's a wasp. It's one of those beastly wapses. I say beastly because, well, they really do have nasty habits of hurting other creatures. Here he comes. Here he comes. Oh, look at him on the ground there. He's just gone into a hole. And there's his girlfriend. His girlfriend is just on the tree above the hole he went into. See him there?
Yeah.
Might be her. I don't know. Oh, there are two of them there now. Wait, she'll come back.
Got him.
I'm trying desperately to get an legal photograph of him taking off. He'll take off before I take the photograph, though, I promise. Miss Anamandris, you say that is such a pretty bird. They are gorgeous. I think bee-eaters, to me, are the most perfectly colour-coordinated of all the birds that we get out here. They even manage to make green and yellow look good together, which normally I don't think they do. Oh, they're so lovely. Is he going to fly? Is he going to stay? Stay or fly? Can anybody else, while we're sitting here enjoying this beautiful bird, remember wind like this last year? Is it only me who thinks that it is windier than it's been before? We've definitely established empirically that the hardest winds we've ever had. Kirsten says she remembers hearing complaints about the wind last year. We've definitely had the strongest winds at least in the last 10 years this year. And I know that because a friend of mine keeps a weather station and has done for the last 10 years. But maybe this time of the year is always breezy. Yeah, missed that. I think they've got a nest down there. Yes, the bird is very similarly coloured to the Springbok rugby team. Gabby, the green and gold. The springboks don't have that beautiful little bit of blue though. Oh, they're lovely. Are you going to fly again? You are, but you're not going... Oh, I missed him. Lovely blank frame there. Yes, Carol, they are. They're actually indistinguishable from each other. Totally indistinguishable from each other. So the female's just as pretty and just as colourful as the males. Yeah, I think they've got a nest down there. They nest in banks normally, but I suppose that the little termite mound must be sufficient for them. No, so Suzanne, they don't normally live in the ground, but they'll live in termite mounds. I'm just going to get my app out. Just consult it. Breeding. Monogamous, here we go, and solitary. The nest tunnel is excavated by both birds into low bank or ceiling of aardvark burrow, and not usually reused in successive years. 2 to 6 white eggs are laid on the sand in unlined nest cavity. The incubation period is 18 to 20 days by both sexes. Parasitized by the primary host of greater honey guide. So they are the primary host of the greater honey guide. They might be raising a honey guide as we speak. Honey guide is like a cuckoo, everyone. Very pretty birds. Sebastian doing a sterling job.
Thank you, Kirsty.
According to Kirsten McLennan-Smith, and I'm sure many of you are agreeing.
You see, she has a soul.
No, that doesn't mean she has a soul. Ooh. Lots of little common perches they have around their home. He's now on the original one that we had him on. Oh, you've got him. Another one. Just catched something. Such a peaceful afternoon now. Yes, Anna Marie the Carmine Bee Eater is a spectacular collection of pinks and reds and blues. Excellent.
Funny how they get up. You see how they get out of the nest?
Yeah.
It's funny how they fly up.
Umka? No, the honey guide is not a cuckoo. It just has the same breeding strategy. So it's a brood parasite, which means that it doesn't make its own nest, exactly like a cuckoo doesn't make its own nest. So it will lay its eggs in the nest of the bee eater.
Do you see them, James?
I can see one on the original perch. We had him on there.
Yeah.
Right, we're now going across to Kirsten describes as Tristan, the great searcher of leopards. I don't know if that means that he's had some luck.
Well, I also have no idea what that means, James. We certainly are trying to search for them, but we're not having much luck this afternoon. Maybe we need James and I to be on a car more often. It seems I've done two drives with James, or 3. And we've had a leopard on every single one, which is quite cool. So, no, it's been 2 with James, and we've had a leopard on both. We had Hukamuri together, and then we had obviously Tanya and the little ones yesterday. So, this leopard is crossed behind us. He's just crossed here, so we just came past here just now, and there his tracks are right there. Here's Day. Coming out, so he's gone north into Buffalo's Hook, I'm afraid. Yeah, delightful. Thank you, leopard. How kind of you. Although that looks like a female more than a male. I wonder if maybe Luna wasn't also around. I said there was female tracks in there. It's definitely gone north into Buffalo's Hook, which is at Tambuti Dam. Remember we were saying that he kind of likes to sit on top of the dam wall sometimes, but that track didn't look big enough for him. I suppose maybe just the harder ground. Oh well, there's nothing we can do about that. Costa, that's an interesting question actually. I quite like it. Have I noticed any changes in leopard behavior over the years? Not really. I mean, individually, yes, there's changes in behavior. In Tingana, going from very shy and skittish to a much more relaxed individual. That would be a change in his behavior. But in overall, as a species, and their kind of how they sort of acclimatized to this section, no, not really. They haven't really displayed too many changes in what they do. What is interesting for me is the change in the behavior between kind of litters or maybe mother and daughters. That always is intriguing. You see, it's a female leopard. It's not a male that's walked here. I wonder if it's not Luna that's around, or maybe Tlalamba, one of the two. But they've definitely gone into Buffalo's Hook, which would mean that maybe Tingana's going to go across too. So we'll just keep it around this area. You never know. One of them can pop out at some point. So we'll just kind of do a bit of a loop round and come. But what interests me is if you look at Karula, for example, her tendency was to spend a lot of time in trees. So not when she didn't have a kill, you would still find her in trees very regularly. She'd just be lying up and taking it very easy. But not one of her offspring coming down has really been a huge tree cat. So Shadow, Tandi, Wasana, Shangile, Kunyuma, Quarantine, Shibinzi, Shivambalana, none of these cats were particularly arboreal, which is interesting. And I wonder if maybe it's to do with the fact that in this area, the lion population maybe is quite high, and so that's almost a way that they've learned that being up in trees attracts more attention to themselves than sleeping on the ground. I don't know, maybe it's because we don't have things like tsetse fly here, that they prefer to be down. But then you'll go into other parts and there'll be leopards that lie up in trees a lot more, so that's quite an interesting change. In terms of also weather conditions and droughts, it hasn't really affected leopard behavior much at all. In fact, they've done quite well, all things considered. I mean, if you think that there's been a huge kind of decrease in the vegetation, you would think leopard numbers would decrease because they won't have places to hide, and competition with lions and things like that would become much more because they'll be seen more frequently. But these leopards have still done incredibly well during these drought periods, and so they've adapted quite nicely to that. How they've adapted and how they've kind of done it is obviously a debate. I don't see any change in the diets though. You see leopards mostly targeting small to medium-sized antelope still. There's no real shift in that, so it's not like leopards all of a sudden targeting bigger animals or smaller animals. And each individual seems to have its own kind of preference. So not too much of a change over the course of the Sabi Sand history. And I think it's too short-term a time for there to be a major change noticed. I think you'd need to see a lot more in order to I wonder also if the lack of, this cat walked this whole road. I wonder if the lack of leopards up trees has got to do with the drought, because in 2010, 2011, you would find a lot of leopards up in trees, like Salayesh and Sele and Nileti, Moya. All of these cats used to spend time in trees, and the newer generation seems not to. And I wonder if maybe it's to do with that. Remember, with the drought, it's become much easier to see long distances, so you can see quite far. And I wonder if that means that they're attracting more attention, and maybe that's why they're not spending time up there. I don't know. But yeah, interesting question. The rest of their behavior is the exact same. They're still pretty much utilizing the exact same areas that they always would. Den sites haven't changed, and just general kind of feeding behavior has also not changed at all. What is interesting for me as well is the kind of cub ratios have been very interesting too. A lot of leopards having a single cub at a time, or if they're losing cubs very early on, or a cub very early on. It seems like all the leopards that have had sort of one cub have been very successful in comparison to those that have had 2 or 3. There's very, very few having 3 cubs in a litter. So I wonder if there's something to do with that as well, that we're seeing leopards having less cubs just because of the high density of predators here, and it's much easier to sustain one cub. Don't know. All interesting thoughts, but like I say, the time span that we're talking about is too short to really kind of draw too many conclusions. What we do know, which is great, is that from just the Sabi Sands, is that leopards are far more sociable than they're given credit for. Everybody calls them the loner cats, and yes, they do spend most of their time alone, but as we've seen over the past few months or years on Wild Earth, there's a huge amount of interaction that takes place between our cats. Males interacting, males and cubs, males and females, females, a lot more than everyone kind of gives them credit for, especially big male leopards. Everyone, if you go to places and you go to an area where there's a guide that's got very little leopard experience, they'll tell you they're strictly solitary and males don't look after the cubs or don't spend time with the cubs. And we know from here that that's not necessarily true. Tingana's interactions with Kalamba were fairly frequent, as they were with Hosanna. We know that Anderson has babysat Tiani before. These things do happen, so it's just sheds a bit more light into the fact that they're not as solitary as we might always kind of think that they are. I think they actually move around a lot more than we think with one another and bump into each other a lot more. Particularly, I think, because it's been so dry, we've seen a lot more of those interactions. A high density dry means that they've all got to go to the same places in order to drink, and that's when you get constant interactions like we've had. If you think of all the winters we've had, or since I've been at safariLIVE, we've had the 2017 leopard interactions where Hosanna and Tumba frequently, with Tingana getting involved and Tundi. Then you go into 2018 and it was the Hosanna show bumping into Kalamba and Tingana and Tundi. And then this year we've had a lot to do with Kalamba and Tingana and even Hosanna a little bit, as well as Luna, and so there's been a lot of kind of interactions with those leopards, and it's always due to the fact that there's a little bit of water and they're kind of coming to those watery areas. All right, well, we'll watch these impalas cross the road, and while we do that, let's send you back across to James with his fascinating little bee eaters.
Now we've got another species of bee eater here. Well, we had another species of bee eater here. It's a European bee eater. And they were all around us, and there was one settled in the tree, and now there are none settled anywhere. But if you listen carefully, you can hear them calling. They all seem to have moved off behind us, unfortunately. Just beautiful turquoise, gold on the back, yellow on the front. I think they've gone. Let's go down to the water's edge. Maybe there'll be a straggler somewhere here. There. See if we can get him. They don't seem to want to settle though, and they seem to be flying away from the water.
Got him.
You got him? Ah, well done. Beautiful. Now they don't tend to hunt from a perch like the little bee eaters do. And they also don't breed here, I don't think. I think they breed overseas. So it's quite interesting that they call here at all, but I suspect it's because they're social birds. So Most birds that don't breed here won't call. For example, the common cuckoo or the European cuckoo, which is the same thing. They won't call here because there's no need for them to call. They don't breed here. And I don't think that chap breeds here either, but I think that he calls simply because he is social. I can't find him. I have found him. Status, common and widespread, by far the greatest number of birding visiting by far the greatest number of birds visiting the region are non-breeding Palearctic migrants. A smaller separate population of breeding birds are intra-African migrants. So, some will breed here. Right, you want to know the difference now between the European and the little. Well, there is a very nice, I suspect, pencil crayon drawing of a European bee-eater. Gorgeous. I wish I could draw like that. Well, I can, of course. You can just go to the Sunday sketch and see. And then we'll just go along by pushing that arrow, and eventually we'll get to the little bee-eater. The little bee-eater is about a quarter the size of maybe a third the size as well. He's much smaller. Mainly green and a bit of yellow, some gold on his belly, and a little bit of blue on his tail, and a tiny bit of blue eyeshadow. Very subtle blue eyeshadow effect. Nice. Superficially, yep, and especially on a screen, if you don't see them live, so it's quite difficult to tell the size difference. They do look quite similar. We also get the white-fronted bee-eater here, gorgeous as well, and the carmine, which we mentioned a little earlier. We are now at the oasis of Chitwa, surrounded by desert. Jinlin, which leopard owns the territory here? This dam is probably the boundary between Sibuyi and Guchava. Sibuyi is sort of to the south, to the south, slightly west actually, and Guchava off to the east and north into Torchwood. Then further east of that would be Nkanyeni, so probably actually Guchava mainly. But I suspect Sibuyi comes popping through here quite frequently for water. But Sibuyi does go all the way on to Mala Mala as well. This used to be Tundi's place. I mean, Tamba, her last cub before Tlalamba, was born underneath the deck here at Chitwood. So they do shift from time to time. Joy, does Luna have water in her territory? You see, I don't know exactly what Luna's territory is, but I mean, she should, because she comes from Biffle's Hook, and there are a number of pumped pans in Biffle's Hook. So I'm not sure if she's experiencing pressure from someone else up there. I don't know. The crocodile looks fairly satisfied with life, but I've never seen a crocodile that doesn't really. Hippopotami. We've got some barn swallows knocking about as well. There they are. Sebastian will try and catch some. They're the ones flying. There we go. Of all the birds to try and film, the swallow is probably second in difficulty only to the swift. So if you're from the UK or the continental Europe, you will recognise the barn swallow. Interestingly, these chaps apparently don't go up to Britain, they go to south of France. I like the south of France. I think if I was a migrant to south of France, it would be a good place to go for the summer. I can't see anything else of great interest here. There is a wood sandpiper. That's him just straight in front of us there, Seb. Yeah, that's him. and I will look around and see if I can find any other interesting birds while you go back to the great leopard searcher, Tristan.
Well, James, I don't think we did worthy of that title this afternoon. Certainly not winning. That's in the Marula tree all the way back there. After this whole conversation about not having leopards in a tree watch, it's going to be Murphy's Law that we'll find one this afternoon with its feet dangling. It's just the branches. Is it? Let's have a quick look with binoculars. Sorry, it's far, 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 and it's going to be difficult to explain. Let me just have a quick scan and then we'll be able to know. But it's in the distance. I think it's just branches hanging down, but there's two kind of things protruding from a branch. Yes. Just branches, I'm afraid. So that big marula way in the distance there. You see on the bottom of that, there's a little, to the left, it's probably that. There's two little things hanging down, so I just thought maybe those were feet or a tail that could be protruding, or even a carcass. Sometimes it's good to just have a little scan and double check, but we can see that that's just a branch, so not a leopard, I'm afraid, but always worth checking. If you're out on safari and you're doing these things, if you see something and you're not sure, it doesn't cost anything just to go back and double check it. You know, sometimes it can be the difference between seeing something and not seeing something, so worthwhile to do so. But yeah, it's been quiet since we last saw you. Not much going on. We watched some impalas across the road, and since then, that is about it. There has been nothing at Buffalo's Hook Dam at all. I mean, it's obviously so dry there. I don't expect huge amounts of animals, but sometimes you can find a sneaky animal hanging around Buffalo's Hook Dam. It sounds like inkahumas are still in the west, and Columba is not anywhere to be found at this stage. Chris, probably due to the fact that they spend most of their time in areas that are fairly dense, which means huge members, well, lots of members together would be quite tricky to kind of keep tabs on where everybody is, and you know, you would end up probably spooking animals quite quickly. So just being kind of solid allows them to live in those thick, dense areas and be able to stalk up and ambush things without other members giving them away. Probably find also, due to the fact that of their size, hunting is easier as a solo individual. They don't have to provide such big meals. If you think of a pride of lions, like the inkahumas, they're having to kill very large things in order to sustain themselves. Things like impala don't really do it. And because of their size, it's not easy for them to catch very large prey animals like buffalo or giraffe or something like that. So impalas and those things become easier. And then, I don't know, and the rest of it probably is a niche-based thing. If they were like lions, they would occupy the same niche and end up probably losing to a bigger animal in terms of competing in that space. So much easier to be the solitary individual that moves around in areas that is very thick and very dense, as an individual can be hidden in plain sight. That would be my sort of theory on it, as to why they've evolved as solitary individuals. Also, having lots of animals together, like I said, means food and water. All of those things become difficult for a leopard. And remember, leopards are very, very, very good at surviving anywhere, really. And that's due to that fact that they can be on their own. So you can find them in desert areas, mountains, savannas, even in rural settlements. They can cut out a niche for themselves, and they can do that because they can feed on small things and move under the cover of darkness as a single entity. Their tracks are not as easy to find as big pride of lions, and so that's maybe kind of how it's evolved. It's just that it's much easier for them to survive that way in the areas that they like to inhabit. Versatile creatures, that's for sure, all things considered. Alright, well, nothing on Nyala Road North. I was hoping we might find some tracks for Columba around here, just coming back towards where Tingana had that impala kill, given that she was also seen hanging around this area, and seeing if maybe there was some scraps for her, but nothing of that sort of sign or that theory to prove that that is the case. It would be nice to see little Columba. She's been a rock star while I've been away. When I left last time for leave, she was on that big impala kill, and since then it seems as though she's just been on a assassination spree of all things four-legged in terms of duikers and impalas and all kinds of things like that. Right, I'm going to start slowly heading back towards Gallagher Pan in the hope that I can find Tingana. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to James, who I think has also left Chitwa Dam, and I wonder where he's off to next.
I am going to drive towards the south of Chitwa, and then towards the west and up the northern boundary. Western boundary, sorry, not northern boundary. Quite like that little drive. Suppose nothing really out here is able to cope with the truly severe drought. I mean, is that true? I suppose, I mean, some are more susceptible than others, and I suppose a steenbok is pretty drought resistant. Duiker is probably less so. So steenbok, leopards can survive droughts because they don't have to drink. Although, as you've seen, they will readily drink when they can. Carnivores probably find it a little easier because, you know, stuff just starts dropping dead eventually out of the drought. Those that don't, the warthogs struggle, the tragelaphid struggle, so the bushbuck, nyala, kudu, they struggle. Kudu actually probably less so. Kudu live in some very dry areas quite successfully. In fact, they live a lot of the way through Namibia, which receives around about 250 millimeters of rain a year, so that's just 10 inches or so. What else? Impala not well at all. So let's say kudu and steenbok, I think, are the two mammals that would probably survive drought the best out here in the wilderness, the wilderness of the Western Kruger. I am looking for tracks of leopards, irons, cheetahs, wild dogs. Lynn, birds affected mostly by drought. I suppose those species that would live in riverine areas and then depend on flushes of insects or grass to survive. So, for example, maybe the kingfishers. I think maybe they would really struggle. Anything that sort of survives in and around water. The plovers, the blacksmith lapwing, the three-banded plover. But of course, you see, these birds just get up and move. If they don't want to be here, they just go, which the mammals can't really do. They don't really have that choice. Ah, elephant from Gabon. These are different from Gabon elephants, aren't they?
Yeah, as Brent.
Yes. We'll check that with Brent, but I'm pretty sure they're not the same. They aren't the same, in case you're wondering. Beautiful savanna elephants. Loxodonta africana. I must say, it continues to be a tremendous privilege to sit out here of a Sunday afternoon looking at elephants and, you know, being at work. People say, how do you work on a Sunday or all weekend? Well, when it's a day like this, temperature's perfect, elephants are out in the golden light. It's difficult to know what else you'd want to do other than this. Other than do some stick clearing, of course. Sebastian, I'm going to sneak forward a bit so that that beastly stick, aka marula tree, is not in the way. I suppose calling a marula tree a stick is a bit of an insult. You're right. There we go. It's a young bull. He's coming to say hello. Hello, young bull. Are you coming to greet us in the name of elephants? Please get out from behind that stick. There we are. Good man. Thank you. He's rather special. There's the big mama in front. She's leading them. He's having a bit of a conversation with us. What are you chaps finding to eat? They're also quite good at drought, you know. Well, the desert-adapted elephants of Namibia are quite good at drought, but I suspect a little bit that that's, you know, they've learned how to deal with it. Cliff, you say, how long can they survive in a drought? They must eat, they must drink every few days. In fact, every day if they can. So elephants that can't drink every day are going to struggle. Beautiful sounds of him eating, apparently you can hear. They are quite gorgeous. Nicely backlit there. That was very artistic. An artistic thorn tree. One got left behind slightly, not too worried. Another young bull coming up next to us on the right. Now I suspect that there is water somewhere not too far from here. I think there's a big dam in Little Gowrie, and I don't think we're too far from that. That's reserved to the south of Djuma. And they seem to be, while not hurrying through there, feeding gently towards it. Hello, young bull. You too are going to try that thorn bush, are you? Good for you. And you can hear them walking on the sand. That's nice. Oh, that's really pretty. So South African. That's really pretty. That's really pretty, is what I meant to say. Oh, Sebastian, there's a very big elephant. Very big lady. Huge.
Hold on.
No.
She's testing there with the backlight. It's
Oh, I
really
see.
nice. Hold on, check.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I was watching an enormous cow walk across the road.
Which one? That one?
Yes. Alrighty, let's move to Tristan. He is going to give us an update.
I am going to give you an update, James. Unfortunately, it's not quite as exciting as elephants with dusty fire being thrown all over themselves. My update is that we've seen very little. In fact, not a single footprint, nothing really to go on at this stage. But we're slowly bumbling our way back towards Gallego Pan. I was just waiting for the sun to get down a little bit. It's now the perfect time for leopards to be moving around. It's gotten to a really nice temperature now. There's a little bit of a breeze. The light is low down in the sky, so perfect conditions. Diana, is there any animal in South Africa that I haven't seen in the wild? Well, in the wild or just in general? Because if it's in the wilds of South Africa, yes, there are a few. In general, no. I mean, I've seen most of South Africa's animals in zoos and things like that. Let's do in the wild, Kirst. In the wild, yes. So the nemesis for me, even though they occur in a lot of the reserves that I've spent time, is a caracal. For some reason, I don't know why, I just haven't seen one. I mean, I've spent time in the Kalahari, I've spent time in Botswana, I've spent time, everywhere, and there's very little sign of a caracal for me. So that's a bit of a nemesis, not seeing one of those in the wild. Riverine rabbit, a couple of the other rabbit species down in the south of the country. There's quite a few mole species and mice and gerbils and bat species that I haven't seen. But of the big animals, no, pretty much all of them. Been lucky to have seen pretty much the best of South Africa's animals. There's nothing that comes to mind that's of a well-known, big-profiled animal. I have seen a polecat. I saw a polecat at Chitwa, of all places, Kirst, at the airstrip hangar there. Yes, it is nice. So I've seen one there. I actually haven't seen an African weasel. That I haven't seen. Although I'm pretty sure that polecats and weasels get interchanged all the time by people. What else? No, that's it. I think I've pretty much covered them. African platypus. No, I'm afraid not, Kirst. I'm still looking for the platypus for you. Kirst is, she's platypus crazy. It's her favorite animal, so I'm still trying to find one of those, Kirst. Unfortunately, I haven't come up with one yet. But one day we'll get a platypus. They are hard to see, you're right. The one day we were talking about platypus, and I sent Kirsty a page on Instagram that is, what was it called, Kirst? It's basically a platypus appreciation, and platypus daily, and it's just daily photographs of platypus in their infinite cuteness. So, because do you still get cool pictures of platypus, or do they just recycle the same pictures all the time? It looks like they might recycle the same pictures. That's not cool when people do that. They don't post daily. Well, that's a bit of a lie then. Why would you say platypus daily and then not post daily? You're going to have to find a new one, I agree, Kirst. New page for the platypus. Maybe you could start one, Kirst. You can get the elusive African platypus as a pet, and then you could start a platypus daily. Pokemon guy, you say you've seen a platypus in the wild. Kirsten is very jealous about this. As am I, actually. I think they're quite cool little creatures. So obviously we don't get them here in Africa. For those of you that think that I'm being serious, we don't get an African platypus. I'm sorry, Kirst, to destroy your dreams. But we unfortunately don't see them here. So that would be cool. I'd like to see one of those, I think. You see now some research has just been done on daily platypus, and apparently they really need to pull up their socks because their last post was on the 7th of September, and that's not daily at all. I mean, that's almost 3 months ago now. Well, it is 3 months ago. #unfollow. Yes, Kirsty. I'm pretty sure that if I remember correctly, when I looked at it actually properly, that they just reuse the same photos every day. So it's not even like a real kind of, yeah, they're not true platypus fans. They fakers, because can't be having fakers in our life. So that's that, I'm afraid. There goes that idea for platypus. Oh, hello, Nyala Bull. That's the first animal I've seen in a long time, bar the impalas. I suppose it's a shame the poor impalas, they don't get much credit. But this Nyala bull is in the most beautiful afternoon light. I suspect he's just come from the little Inga's watering hole, which is where Tandi's been spending a lot of time drinking. And you find often the Nyalas drank from there when we were there. They were drinking. But you can see it's got that beautiful orange late afternoon light, and it just really makes these male Nyalas that much more impressive when they've got beautiful light on them. You can see all the whites and the caramel legs and that sort of chocolatey brown body, and then the fur that's blowing in the wind. It would just be nice if he put up his head and kind of faced us. That would complete the picture. But no, he's got head down and is feeding at the moment. There's obviously something very, very tasty that's on the ground, because generally with Nyala and most antelope, then they feed on the ground like this. They pop their head up to look and then go back to feeding. They don't stay down for too long, but there's evidently something very, 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 very tasty in this particular patch of ground. I can't think what it could be. I mean, there's no pods that are around at the moment. It's not close to any of the bigger trees. Maybe there's little shoots that are coming up there, or a bone maybe that it's chewing, but I don't see a bone. It looks like it's little shoots that it's after. Why there would be shoots at this time of the year with the dryness that we've had, I'm not sure. You know, normally that's after rain, but it's almost like it's mouthing the leaves. You see, it's not really kind of eating. What is it doing? Is it eating the leaves? Very odd. Whatever it is, it must be tasty. It almost looks like it's got something in its mouth already that it's chewing, like a seed or a... See, it's battling to kind of get it down. It actually doesn't have its lips in amongst the leaf litter. I wonder what it's... Maybe it's got a little bulb or something that it found that is very chewy. You can also see the action of the mouth. It tends to suggest... There, what is it? It came out a little bit there. Can you see what it is, Kirst? Something came out of the mouth. It's so small on my screen, it's difficult. Or is it just picking up leaves as it goes? Lou in Final Control says it is not a bone. I mean, I was thinking it might be a bone, but I can't see too much white there. And if it was chewing it as much as it is now, you would see the white of that bone kind of quite easily, but you don't. So, maybe it is a meaty bone. Let's try and see if we can get a little bit closer, see if we can maybe get a better view of what this Nyala is doing. Nancy, you reckon seeds, but like I say, there's no real seeds around at the moment. The bush willows, I suppose there is actually some seeds. That's what it is, Nancy, you're right. This is under a bush willow tree that's got seeds in it. So it's busy eating those bush willow seeds by the looks of it. Hello, boy. Obviously with the wind, there's maybe a collection of them that have gathered in that little area, and it's picking up those little four-winged pods of the bush willow that is in amongst that. Oh, is that what you're doing, Nyala? Come on, put your head up a little bit so we can see what you're picking up. Because it's in amongst the leaf litter, whatever it is. Yes, must be seeds. Very delicate the way that they feed, though, isn't it? That's very cool. It's not often you get to sit and kind of just be close enough to watch them actually pick out individual seeds in amongst the leaf litter. It must be a tedious job, but a tasty one, because this Nyala has not even put up its head, and we've driven right near it. I mean, it is a Nyala that is close to camps, which means it's generally quite a relaxed individual. The Nyalas that hang around camps normally are incredibly relaxed. But it must be tasty, because normally these animals are quite sort of alert, and even the ones that live around camp, when a car starts, they look up, and this particular fella is not interested at all. But it must be the bush willow seeds, because I can see in the tree itself there's seeds that are there. So for those of you that don't know what a bush willow seed looks like, I'm going to go a bit closer and we'll try and show you what I mean. Just don't want to go too fast so that the Nyala gets a fright. A lot of you are saying how beautiful he is. He's certainly beautiful, but also a little piggy because he's not even moving. But if you just look on the edge of the tree here, there's a few little seeds on the sort of terminal branches. Not many, but you'll see one or two of these little round seeds. Maybe let's try a little bit further up. There should be two that are right on the edge there. There we go. There's two right on the top of the frame. Those would be probably the easiest ones to pick out. You can see the two sort of light colored objects. So there they are. And those are those little russet bush willow seeds. And that's probably what it's after. Now, generally you don't see them consuming these pods too much, but because it's so dry, I'd imagine that this is fairly decent nutrition for this male Nyala, and that's why they're targeting those. But very, very clever seed pod design. So you can see it's got this kind of main section of the seed, which is the dark portion, and then those wings that come off of it, and that's all agent of dispersal for wind. So as soon as they break off, the wind will basically roll that little seed around, and it can be spread all over the place because those little wings will catch the wind even on the ground before it then eventually germinates. So clever little way of doing things. Very nice. Nyala, is that yummy? Happy Nyala, that's for sure. It's having a good old feed in amongst that leaflet. There must be a lot of seeds inside there because it has been rummaging for quite some time. And like I say, normally you don't get close to Nyala at all, but I mean, we're on top of this Nyala now, and it is perfectly happy to just carry on feeding. Isn't that cool? I think so. It's not every day we get nice close-ups of a Nyala. It's eating some of the dry leaves too. I suppose that's unavoidable in a patch like this. It's cool watching its nose going back and forth. You can see the brown in his eye. It's nice because a bit of light. Generally, Nyala eyes appear very, very dark because, you normally see them in quite shady areas, but this one's got a bit of a glint in the eye, so you can actually see the sort of brown around the pupil. You can also see those beautiful facial markings that they've got. So those white dots around underneath the eye and towards the chin, and then that chevron that goes over their nose with a little sort of break in it. That kudu and Nyala share. They both have that little chevron. Bushbuck males, you don't see it on, or bushbuck, you don't see it nearly as vividly as what you see on kudu and Nyala. Beautiful animal, though. Have you realized we're here now? Doesn't seem too phased, does he? Alright, well, we've been given the cold shoulder by our Nyala, and so while it feeds off and we carry on and go and see if we can find Tingy, let's send you back across to James as he slowly makes his way back to Djuma.
Yes, we're making our way to the western boundary. We just need to get off this heinous road, which is alternatively sand so thick you can sink into it, or ruts so deep you can rattle your teeth out on them. There we go. Phew. Now we are going to view the sunset. It's nearly 6 o'clock. Time for gin and tonic. Sebastian, did you bring gin and tonics?
I don't do these kind of things.
Oh, sorry. Atlanta Jewel, you want to have a sunset off with me and Tristan. Well, given Tristan's ability to see picture compared with mine, I fear me it's not going to be much of a duel, but here will be our best effort. Mine will feature the sun, the tree, and me. Well, I'm going to try, Sebastian. And if I fall off it, well, then at least I will win the competition. This tree has been rotting quietly here for the last 4.5 years. And if I am not stinged by a scorpion, I shall be quite surprised. Oh, scorpion, don't sting me on the hand, or any other part of my body for that matter. Oh, scorpion, don't sting me on the hand. Scorpion. How are we doing so far, Sebastian?
Pretty good, but you need to go higher.
Oh no, but then I'm going to fall off and hurt myself. Oh, I'm so scared now, because the tree's falling apart, and parts of my body, which I don't wish to make so close to scorpion nests, are now very close to the scorpion nests. Oh, sore. Oh,
Oh, that's looking good.
yes.
A bit more
A bit more where?
in front of you.
Yeah.
Cassie says it looks very nice.
Oh God.
Yeah, I think that's as good as it can get. Ta-da! Beautiful.
Am I a silhouette or can you see my face?
You black.
That's good,
Yeah.
for there is a look of terror.
I can though.
No, don't.
Hold on.
Don't.
No, it's very contre-jour.
It's very contre-jour, yes.
Kirsty says she sent the picture. So he's got to do better.
This is actually quite a nice picture, isn't it?
It's
I don't mean
beautiful.
of me, I mean of the mountains. The foothills of the great Dragon Range.
It's beautiful, James. Just drive off.
Why are you laughing, Sebastian? Have you been filming my bottom?
No, I just got an idea.
What is your idea?
I could drive off.
You could certainly try that. Off you go then. Oh, it is just magical. It's a pity you don't drink gin and tonic, Sebastian, because we could really have a good one here. There was a time when it was illegal to mention such things on drive. I'm not sure if it still is or not.
Apple juice.
All right. Well, I better come down from here now.
Samantha said something. Casey, if you can repeat that, sorry. What Samantha said?
Kirsten, please repeat what Samantha said.
Oh, she wants you to do, Samantha wants you to do a shadow puppet story.
A shadow puppet story.
Yeah.
Now?
Yes.
Up here?
Yes.
Okay. What must the story be on?
Your choice. Why are you taking your shoes off?
Well, I need my puppets.
Oh, okay.
This is called the story... Oh, I've got to let go, though. The story of...
Balance. Balance is important.
The story of who?
The story of Tandy and two cubs.
The story of two cubs. Good. One male and one female. And the male's name is Lucian, and the female's name is Amy. This is Amy, and this is Lucian. When do you think
Okay,
Mummy will
hold
come
on.
back?
You need to hold them above your head. Yes, yes, yes. Here we go.
When do you think Mummy will come back? I don't know when Mummy will come back. Why do you ask? I'm very hungry. Well, I'm also hungry, but I'm going to eat your food. That's not very nice, Lucien. I'm not very nice though, am I, Amy? I'm a leopard. Oh, are you? Yes, I am. Ow! Ow! I'm just as big as you are, Lucien. Well, soon you won't be. Oh, you can't bully me. I'm just as fast and strong. Well, soon you won't be. You can't do calculus. No, I can't. I'm a bit thick, but I'm going to grow big and strong like my dad. You don't even know who our dad is. That's a good point. That's all I got.
Very, very good.
Thank you. Can we link away now, please?
You can link to Tristan.
Let's go to Tristan.
Well, James has taken so long that now I can't get the sunset from where I am. All I've got is basically trees. We're too low down to be able to get the sunset like James. We were going to climb into a marula, and I even had a glass and everything for our gin and tonic, so we were going to one-up James. We got a hippo in the background. We had the perfect tree, but it was, unfortunately, when we got there, the sun was too low already, and the tree was not in the right place. Of course, I actually don't really have a gin and tonic. It's water, but it would have looked like gin and tonic with our glass. So we could have... I can watch the sock puppet video if I want. Kirsty sent me the sock puppet video. Now, you've all lived this already. I haven't, so I'm going to try and wait for... Kirsty, we've got... Well, I'm getting Wi-Fi all the way from here. There you go. If anyone wants to know how strong Djuma's Wi-Fi is, where I'm sitting right now, all the way from over there, I'm picking up Wi-Fi, which is quite something. And it's actually pretty fast too. That's interesting. So we'll wait for the sock puppet video to download while you watch the Djuma sort of lodge and sunset, because I don't want to move too far because I don't have great signal, and so it won't download. Oh, it's slowed right down now. Oh no, we've lost Wi-Fi. It was too good to be true, Gert, to get Wi-Fi all the way from here. I know. Now I'm still waiting. Come on, sock puppet. Come on. Oh, there we go. It's done. All right. Okay, hold on. I've got to get this to start in the beginning. Now, all of you have already seen this, so I can watch this now. What is...
Well, soon you won't be. Oh, you can't bully me. I'm just as fast and strong. Well, soon you won't be. You can't do calculus. No, I can't. I'm a bit thick. So I'm going to go big and strong like my dad. You don't even know who our dad is.
James is another story, isn't he? He's quite priceless. This is what it's like to be on the back wall when he's on the back of the vehicle. That's all it's like. The whole drive is all you do is end up laughing, because there's these little things and quips and voices and all kinds of other things that go on behind you. Thoroughly entertaining. He's one of a kind, that's for sure. My favorite sock puppets moment in James has got to be the time but sock puppets, was it for the gauntlets, the advert reenactment? That's right. Yes, that's a classic James Hendry moment, one that will had many people in stitches. I was lucky enough to be on that drive as well, listening to it from afar and giggling all the way through. James and his sock puppets. At least it was a backlit sock puppet enactment, because now you can't tell if James's socks are dirty or not. Well done, James. That was clever. I'm actually not sure what colour socks he's got on. I don't even know what colour socks I've got on. Thankfully, Kirst, he says yes. What colour socks do I have? Hold on, Kirst. I've got white socks on, so you can't see them from there, but I'll try and pull them out. risky. White is always risky in the bush, but I couldn't find my normal ones. You know, you go on leave and socks go on a party and they go and find, you know, all their friends, their long lost cousins, and you come back and you've got one sock left instead of the 6,000 pairs that you had brought on your previous cycle. It's amazing how quickly socks disappear. I promise you, if I come to work and if I do a long stint, I've done a few that have been 2.5, 3 months, and I always buy new socks for that stint, and by the time I get home, gone. Socks have gone walking, they've gone looking for friends. Exactly, don't get attached to socks. If you're attached to socks, you can get attached to socks, but if you are attached to socks, don't come and live in a communal camp in the African wilderness, because you will not have any by the time you leave, and you'll be heartbroken and very, very depressed. It's the first thing that goes missing. Steve complains a lot about the fact that his underpants also go missing. Do you think it's a worldwide pandemic, Kirst? It seems particularly bad in communal living in the bush. It's been something that is always plagued every guide or anybody that's lived in the bush has ended up with the lack of clothing, particularly socks. And it's always one. It's never both. You'll put your pair of socks into the washing and one will come back. Never ever will you lose both socks. It will always just be one. And then the next pair that you have, if they're the same as those other socks, like these socks that I'm wearing, I'll show you now. Let me take off my shoes so you can see what I'm talking about. Give me 2 seconds because I tied a knot in my shoe, so it'll be difficult to take them off. And let's turn off the car as well because we don't want to listen to that. We might as well have the sounds of the African bush while I do this. But essentially, you'll see now there's 2 things that one needs to do when wearing socks in the African wilderness. Firstly, is one needs to write your name all over them. Not that this works, but you have to have names on them. See, my sock is pretty clean considering it's a dusty day and I've been tracking a little bit. But you have to have a sock that says, it does, T-R-I-S-T, Trist. I couldn't write A in because I had a line there that cut it. The other thing is that you see here it says an R, right? So that's for right-hand side of the sock. Now, if I show you my other sock, it will say L. Now, when you lose socks, I have a lot of pair of these particular socks in multitudes of colors. But essentially what happens is that when you lose socks, you normally will lose one of them, as I was saying. So you've got right and left, and you'll normally lose one. But then you'll get another pair and you'll lose them, and you'll never get a left-right. So you'll lose the left of the one pair. The next pair will also be the left. So you'll have 2 rights and only, well, no lefts. Then you never lose the left and then the right in the next pair, which you could then harvest and kind of create another pair. Instead, you end up wearing socks that are the wrong shape for your foot. But there we go. There's my hidden cool socks that are on my feet. Now, I best put shoes on, otherwise they're going to be dirty. So you're going to have to watch me do this, I'm afraid. No, Louise, I'm too pedantic for that. I like socks that are tailor-made for each foot. Do I have to tie my shoes, Kirsty? Please say no. I don't feel like it. Oh, that was a lot of effort. Land Rovers are not made for big people to put their feet up on the dashboard like that. There we go. All sorted. So now you can see that's the kind of issues that we face with socks. But like I was saying, Steve has an underwear thief in the camp somewhere that steals it, and I've never understood this. I've spent some time in a lot of really kind of difficult areas and places where people live together, where there's no shops around. But why would people steal other people's underwear, of all things, especially when you work together? I don't want to be wearing Stephen's underwear. Why would I want to be wearing Stephen's underwear? It's not right to be stealing people's underwear. In fact, I'm sure they're clean because they get washed, but it still somehow just doesn't feel hygienic to be wearing somebody else's underwear. So I'm one of those that is also, I'm on Stephen's side with this. If his underwear is being stolen, then it's no good. Did you see a track there? Not. So don't be an underwear thief. That's my advice for the day, is do not be an underwear thief at all. Right, now Kirst, I've also pulled my earpiece out, so give me 2 seconds to plug it in. All that fidgeting and fluffing about with my socks has meant that I've... There we go, Kirst. It's back in. You can talk to me again. Right, so James, who took my sunset away from me by hogging it and doing puppet shows, has still got a little bit of sun, so he must be on the highest point on the reserve. So let's send you back across to him so he can thoroughly whip me in this competition.
That was my attempt at a piece or bar or two from the musical Hair, because that was a very psychedelic shot created by the great Sebastian Rombini from Gabon. No, Kirsten, I wasn't playing a tiny violin for Tristan. I play them for myself sufficiently. Now, we're going to move ahead because I've just heard a little conflagration of birds going just down there. Well, they went like this. They went I wish I had a voice that didn't crack up when I made loud noises like that. So many things one can wish for. Oh, it's the spotlight. Couldn't figure it out. There was this blinding light in the tree as we drove past, and I thought either the sun's reversed and is coming back up, or there's something going on. Anyway, the pocking was around here. Maybe Hukamuri or Shidulu is around here. Hukamuri or Klidulu. Apparently you're all awake now after I shouted like a Franklin. I'm sorry about that, Painted Wolf. You say you were wearing headphones and you are now deaf. Well, if you could hear me, I'm sorry, and I cannot sign how to say that I'm sorry, Painted Wolf. So I'll just say, I'm assuming that's a universal sign of I'm sorry. I don't know what Painted Wolf is. There we go. So that was my Painted Wolf. I don't think that's accurate, though. Oh, remember this. No, I'm not the sock and underwear thief, and until very recently I had actually remained pretty immune to the thieving of underwear. I had a brand that clearly nobody else wanted, and then I got a new brand and they've all gone, like that. Now we stopped here and I think we decided this was the nest of a... I've completely forgotten. I don't remember. I was on camera when we found it. And it's definitely not active anymore, but I'm pretty sure there's an entrance sort of hidden. And it's not ants, it's a bird. There are lots of ants. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know where the entrance is, but it's hidden. It's well hidden. It'll be... Ah, there we are. There it is. Just kidding. But I thought we figured out quite nicely what it was. Did we say it was a chagra, maybe? No, we didn't say it was a chagra. We looked it up and we read about it. I don't remember. Anyway, very nicely, beautifully constructed nest. And that's why when somebody said to me the other day they thought the nest of the Wahlberg's eagle looked quite nice, I said to them, I really didn't think in comparison to some other nests that it looked really nice at all. And, well, that's why. Right, on we go. We are now on Mendoza Road. Spats, no, the animals don't steal my socks. I don't think. Maybe it is the animals. You know, Steph had such a terrible problem with his socks that he brought a mass. He went to a sort of, I don't know, bulk sock place, so if such a place exists, and he bought himself, I think it was 48 pairs of socks. Reasoning that even if everybody in the camp was stealing socks, he'd have enough for everyone in camp to have a different pair for every day of the week. He doesn't have one of them left. All gone. So it really is a very distressing thing. And as Kirsten says, that was just silly on his part. Well, yes, I don't think it was. I think it was desperation rather than silliness. And kindness, yes. There are a lot of very happy people, or one very, very happy person. Steve's great refrain, of course, is that it's disgusting to wear somebody else's underpants. And he can't understand that even after being washed, how you could wear someone else's underpants. And, well, I kind of see his point, but you know, desperate times and desperate measures and all that. Maybe let's go back to Tristan.
No, James. Desperate times, there's other plans that can be made. You can't steal somebody else's underwear and wear it. That's just not on. It's offsides. If they were in a game of rugby or soccer, you would be called offsides for doing such things. It's just not in the gentleman or ladies' code to steal somebody else's underwear and wear it. I mean, if you're really desperate, sure, maybe. But I mean, in our camp and the fact that we have a town trip once a week, you can never be that desperate unless you're just packing, 3 pairs of underwear and you losing one. Steph having lost all his socks is quite entertaining. That does make me laugh a lot, but I can sympathize. I reckon in my time at Wild Earth, I've probably most definitely bought probably close to 48 pairs of socks. They just seem to float away on the breeze regularly. Yes, no. If you have any sort of branded shirt, if it has safariLIVE on it, or Nat Geo, or anything like that, those are just... And everyone steals from each other, and it just, I don't know where they end up, but those just disappear incredibly fast. Don't know why, they just do. Anyway, it's okay. Luckily... Take care, most definitely. If you had to leave a pair of socks and shoes outside, your socks and shoes will be gone. Hyenas will take them for sure. Leopards, funny enough, also will take clothing items. There's quite a famous photograph of a leopard from Singita up in a tree with a jacket from a tracker. And it was hanging up outside, and the leopard took it and then took it up in the tree and was lying on it. It looked as though this poor guy had been, murdered, but... Yes, Karula taking laundry off a line. It's often female leopards that are expecting, or if they've had, if they have cubs, and then the cubs do it as well. So there's a few animals that will take socks. I reckon birds, there's an odd bird that would do it. I think genets would probably take your socks, use it as a nesting material. Bush babies maybe even. So socks are not safe in the wilderness. It's not only humans, but the animals themselves. Don't you think it'd be quite cool to see like a leopard walking down the road with some fancy pair of socks? And they had these like brightly colored socks on, just kind of cruising down the road with a pair of headphones listening to music. That would be a vibey leopard, I would say. It'd be nice actually to see a leopard cruising down the road, irrespective of socks or not. At this stage it's been an awfully quiet afternoon, hence the fact that we're talking about socks and theft of underwear in camp. Normally when drives are quiet, this is what we end up devolving into. It's just not ideal. Not ideal that we do, but anyway, you're all along for the ride. Hopefully you enjoy our random conversations at times. Donovan, do you ever get tired of living in the bush? I think you get to the point where you're feeling tired, and then you go to a city, and then you very quickly remember why you don't want to be in the city, and then it rejuvenates you to come back. It's why the 6-week, 2-week kind of thing works. But for me, I think everyone's different as well. Some people come to the bush and absolutely hate it, and hate the living, hate being far from family, hate not being able to go to the shop to get things that they want, and just, after a few months go, or a few years, move on. And then you get those that are completely comfortable in the bush, and most of the crew that you're seeing at safariLIVE are seasoned in the bush and have spent a lot of time in it, and therefore enjoy it. There's very few of us that are fairly new to it. So, yeah, I think if you can just wrap your head around it, you're not going to be able to do certain things, and you prepare, and it's actually really not that bad being out here. And like I say, we have pretty much most of what we need. We have really good food. We have the ability to get to a town that has got most of the major things that you would require in the form of toiletries and socks and underwear and, small luxuries. And so, I don't think it's really that remote. Going into a really remote part of Africa is also a very different thing. That can be very difficult, when you've got long drop toilets and cold water, or you shower in a river or something like that, that starts to wear down after a while. But for the most part, no. I thoroughly enjoy living in the bush. It's to be able to walk outside and not have to worry about traffic, and to not hear hooters, and to not hear, noise of the city, and that for me is perfectly fine. It's nice to have fresh air and see the stars at night and those kind of things. So, and I think Kirsten, I was about to say, all of you that were in Johannesburg for a few months have come back with a renewed sense of vigor, as to just how nice and how special it is to live in a place like this. It's nice to be in the city, but the city is not quite the same thing, and so all of the girls that are back say that it's so nice to be back here, and spending time out in the wilderness. Well, ultimately also because you work out here and then live here together, you create so many memories with people, so many more than you would in a city environment. Like in the city, you'll see your friends maybe 2-3 times a week, maybe a little bit more, some people. But here, you literally with each other all the time, bar when you kind of sleeping or if you go to your room. But for the most part, you spend, a lot of time together. And so there's just so many more memories made in such a short space of time, that being out in the bush is a very, very special thing that is worthwhile for anybody. If anyone gets the chance to do it, I recommend it. Like I say, some people maybe couldn't think of anything worse than being out here. But for me, it's nice. Summer is a bit testing. Summer is not easy out here, between the rain and the humidity and the insects and the heat. It's a little bit more extreme in the summer months, but winter is very, very pleasant in the bush, particularly in South Africa. Obviously, if you're in East Africa, you're not going to have to worry about any of those things, because it's winter and summer is pretty much the same thing in that part of the world, as is the case with the equatorial forests of the Congo and Central African Republic. So on the bucket list, actually, talking about things like this, I don't know why, it's just, there's this really epic place in the Central African Republic that I'm dying to go to. I know I went to Odzala, which is in the Congo, the Republic of Congo, not the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's all very, very confusing. But there's this area that's in the Central African Republic, not too far from Odzala, actually. And it just looks like the most insane place to go to. We heard about it when we were there. And I would love to be able to go there. Kudu, what are you looking at? There's a kudu that's looking quite alert here, so I'm just going to watch this kudu for a little bit and see what it's doing. No, it's feeding now. So while we kind of see what this kudu does and where it ends up, let's send you across to James, who's now apparently climbed yet another obstacle in life.
Now, I said that we had a very wonderful view before, but in actual fact, finding a decent view where the land is so flat is quite difficult. And the best view available here is right up here on this tower. I can see the mountains, I can see Hoedspruit, Acorn Hook, Bushbuck Ridge, Ulusaba, and all the way down towards, I don't know what that is, maybe Tulamahash, probably Bushbuck Ridge down there, maybe even Hazy View. Anyway, the reason for climbing this tower, we often mention the Gari repeater, we often mention the towers, and this tower is basically where the signal comes from. And so it goes from the cars into this tower, into this dish, and then across to the final control, and then out basically to where you are. And it is a magical, magical spot to come and stand. And I quite often come up here just to see what's happening. And I thought I'd do that this evening on account of the fact that I cannot find any animals for you.
All the viewers are stressing a little bit about your situation up there.
No, don't be stressed about it. I've done this many, many times. Fear not. Many times indeed. If I was working up here, I would definitely have a harness. So I wouldn't just climb up. But to climb up and down, it would be absolutely fine. So I shall come down slowly if you'd like me to. Being careful not to kick any of the repeaters off. I did that once. I came up here halfway through my run and unfortunately kicked off the internet repeater. And, well, nobody was very pleased with me, so I had to come back and fix it. But I did bring a harness that time.
Agent A says he's going to talk to your mummy.
What is that?
Agent A says he's going to talk to your mother.
Someone's going to talk to my mother. No, please don't do that. My mother would be absolutely scandalized. My mother is unable to watch me stand on a chair, let alone the Gari repeater. But as long as you keep at least 3 limbs attached at any one time, I believe you can do this very safely. Hell's bells, that chap, what's his name, who climbed that rock face in Yosemite without any assistance whatsoever, just a bit of chalk in his backpack. I mean, I'm sure his mother was less than pleased. I forget his name. Anyway, there it is. I am quite blessed in that I was not born afraid of heights. Are you afraid of heights, Sebastian?
No, I'm fine.
There we are. I have survived.
Well done. Everyone's saying, wow, that was high.
I hope you're all relieved. It's quite high. And I mean, you'd hurt yourself, but you know what? You've watched me climb trees often enough, and many of those trees, if I'd fallen out of them, I'd have done myself just as much damage as if I'd fallen off of that, just, I suppose, semi-long ladder, really. It was so satisfying up there. I mean, the view really is unbelievable. I should have taken a cell phone up there and taken a picture.
Yeah.
I suppose Sabi used to get that view in your drone, didn't you?
Exactly.
Before David crashed it. Ow! I've just broken my knee. Oh. Hey. Christy, no. Monkeys don't climb up there, but interestingly, where I used to work at a place called Ngala, which many of you have heard me mention before. Sorry about that.
I'm still here.
You're still there? Good. All right. There was a cell phone tower, one of the big cell phone companies in South Africa, particularly useless one. They're all useless, in case you were wondering. I shan't mention their names. I'd love to berate them publicly, but I won't. They had a cell phone tower up near where I worked, and it was quite wide. It had a couple of platforms on it, and the baboons used to go and sit on it. Almost nightly you could go, and if people were desperate to see baboons, you'd find them up there on the tower. But I don't think, well, I've never seen a monkey up there. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't suppose there's any reason they shouldn't roost up there, sleep there for the night. Be a pretty safe place to roost, except there's no cover. And I don't suppose there was any cover on the cell phone tower either. There was no coverage from it either. Did you get that joke? Kirsten doesn't think it was very funny at all. She went, I would suggest that anybody who watches the dam cam tonight watch out for Tundi, because I think you'll find that she's going to have a drink this evening. Child of the Universe, the most remote place in Africa that I've been. Certainly not the Sabi Sands. Almost definitely the Okavango Delta. No. Well, depends what you mean by remote. So, the Okavango Delta is a long way from anything. So it's the closest place is, or town is a place called Maun, which is a very small establishment that is basically refueling depot and supply depot for all of the lodges and for people who are doing trips up into the Okavango. But between the remotest parts of the Okavango and Maun, there really is not very much at all. At the same time, I have been to a part of the Kasai province in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and I definitely felt a sense of greater remoteness there, because you can't drive in there. You can only fly or go on a barge, and the barge, you know, is sort of 3 or 4 days from Kinshasa, very slow, and it's through the jungle. And while it was remarkable, and there are a lot of people there, so there are much more people there than you'd find in the Okavango Delta, and so I suppose in theory therefore it wasn't, and you got full cell phone signal actually, I suppose it wasn't therefore that remote, but it was a very, very long way from any kind of medical help or supplies. You know, everything was kind of, you brought everything in that you wanted, and then you'd have to wait for 3 weeks if you left something behind. So that felt extremely remote. But because there were more people there, perhaps you wouldn't define it as remote. Perhaps you'd only define somewhere as remote if you were in a place like the Delta. But I think if you were really looking for remoteness away from people and the touch of any kind of humanity, you'd have to go to the Sahara Desert. There are more than 1 billion people living in Africa now, which means a substantial portion of the continent is covered. So you're going to struggle to find areas where if you travel in one direction for 100 kilometers or so, you're not going to come across some kind of human settlement. And I think possibly an exception would be in the desert of the Sahara. Maybe parts of Namibia too. Namibia can be very remote as well. So the drier places tend to be the most remote, I think. I'm trying to think of anywhere else. Zambia, no. Zimbabwe, no. South Africa, no. Namibia, no. Mozambique, no. Tanzania, no. Masai Mara in Kenya, no. No. Yeah, so I would say those places that are the driest and, furthest from human contact. Okay, let's go back across to Tristan. He has got his spotlight out and he's looking for creatures of the evening.
Indeed, James. It's pretty much the aim of the game when you have the spotlight out, to try and find some sort of creature of the evening. And we're trying to look for Tingana and possibly this female. Her tracks, we just came on the cut line again, and her tracks definitely turned in to the drainage line. So there's tracks that I saw for a female, I'm pretty sure for her, but which female it is very difficult. There's a duiker, so that's not what we're looking for. I just thought it would be worth just coming back to the last tracks I had of Tingana were here. So I just thought I'd come back this side and just have a little scan around and see if I could find him. But alas, there doesn't seem to be any sign of him lurking. When you've got things like duikers hanging around and looking quite calm, then generally it's a good indication that that leopard is no longer sitting around this area. So I'm just going to do a little turnaround and then one more time past Gallagher Pan, and if nothing there, then I'm going to go and quickly check towards Inga's, because while James thinks Tundi's going to drink at the dam cam, I think she's going to go to Inga's. So I'm going to go and check there quickly, see if we can bump into her as a last minute leopard going for a little bit of water. It's been a warmish afternoon, and if she spent the whole day with the cubs, then maybe she's going to come up for a little bit of water this afternoon. And she wouldn't have come for water last night because we know she drank yesterday, so I think that it'll be a fine idea just to go past Inga's on the way home. If nothing at Gallagher. Now James says he agrees with me now. Well, there we go, James. We're getting this right eventually. I'll probably prove us both wrong. She'll probably come and drink a Vertella pan and put on a show at the dam camp. Knowing Tundi, she can be a little bit otherwise sometimes. So, who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. So Nikita, I mean, it depends on what you like. If you want, in terms of living, I would say Botswana. There's a lot more infrastructure available to you. Getting around and being able to get around safely is much better than Mozambique. Mozambique at the moment is quite unstable, and there's been a few nasty incidents, particularly in the far north of Mozambique. But it's still a beautiful country and got some really crazy wildlife areas, and they're doing so much work in Mozambique to repopulate and rewild a lot of their game reserves and try and sort them out, and it's fast kind of getting there. So they've got some beautiful places, and James was talking about sort of remote areas. Mozambique has got some of the most remote game reserves in the world in terms of places like Nyasa and the likes. So they're getting there, but in terms of living and seeing a lot of wildlife that is relaxed and not being used to being persecuted. Remember, a lot of the Mozambican wildlife has had to deal with huge poaching, especially during the Civil War, and so is often very shy in comparison to what you see in Botswana. So Botswana, from a seeing a lot of animal point of view, is going to be probably a better bet. And like I say, living, you'll be able to get the things that you need fairly easily, and life be a little more simple if you stay in Botswana than it would be if you were to live in Mozambique. But both equally beautiful areas and incredible wildlife. It just really depends on what you count as acceptable. And this is always the thing about being in the wilds, is some people are quite happy to go and do wildlife but want to be in nice accommodation and stay in nice places and have nice facilities, and that's perfectly fine. And then there's other people that like a lot more rough and wild and camp and those kind of things. And so it really just depends on you and your personal preferences. But if I was to advise somebody that said to me, I've got a choice of living in Mozambique or Botswana, I would go Botswana. Just from a safety, wildlife, everything point of view, it's slightly ahead of, well, not slightly, it's quite far ahead of Mozambique. While Mozambique's got some beautiful areas and certainly has huge potential, there's just too many things that would make it very tricky in order to live there, whereas Botswana is very doable. That's what I think anyway. Alright, well, that's my opinion. Maybe we should ask James what he thinks between Botswana and Mozambique as he trundles along on the western side of the reserve.
There are two reasons I wouldn't choose Botswana, and that's a chameleon, by the way. And the one is that it's very flat. I've said this to you before. It's the Kalahari, basically, and so you don't get any great mountain ranges. Yes, you do get hills, but the delta, for example, is, if you want to get a view, you've really got to climb up something quite substantial. And I remember noticing that almost immediately on going to the delta. I don't know why it is that affects me, but that's just the kind of person I am. And Mozambique I really like because it's got the sea as well. So Botswana obviously doesn't have any sea, being landlocked, and I love the sea, and so I would probably choose Mozambique. Although I have not spent any time inland in Mozambique, so I don't know what any of their reserves are like. So this flap-necked chameleon is being very, very accommodating to us, and sitting obviously on a guarabush, and it's gone to sleep, yeah. You can see it is sleeping soundly. Now it's awake, wondering why it is that we're here, what we want. I wonder also, Kirsten says that this is what she looks like when she wakes up. Well, that's quite shocking. I think that this chameleon's about to shed its skin. Can you see how there seems to be an outer layer that's peeling away from the rest? Am I imagining that, or can you see that, Seb?
I think I see what you mean.
Yeah, and it's very loose around the back. So I think this chameleon is about to shed its skin, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, all reptiles do. It may have even done it already on its feet, legs, limbs. Louise makes a very good point. She says, do crocodiles shed their skin? I don't think they do. And tortoises, she says, I don't think they do either. Very good point. Kirsten says, how do you like them apples? Not very much. I find them sour, bitter to the taste. Okay. Snakes, lizards, and chameleons. I think they shed their skin. I don't think chelonians or crocodiles do. Very mean. I feel quite hurt now that they couldn't just point out my obvious mistake nicely, why they had to tell me I was useless and make me feel bad about myself. Well, Enemy Mouse, a chameleon is a very good pretender, so yes, it could indeed be pretending that it's about to shed its skin in order to confuse us, because they are masters of deception. Can you hear that, Seb? Someone's having a party still in Dixie Village. They're going to wake up on Monday morning regretting their decision. Alright, let's carry on. Jacqueline, you say you love what about the chameleon? The smitten eyes hands. Oh, mitten-like hands, yes. It's got 2 front and 2 back. Kirsten's just explained that you meant mitten. Mitten. Kirsten is, of course, from Durban, which means she doesn't speak a recognizable form of English. This is not good. The spotlight has just died. Wiggle it by the plug. Ah, well done. Thank you, Sebastian. Spotlight Steve did some work on it, did he? Well done. Well done, spotters. Spotlight Steve is now on leave, of course, which means that no one is chairman of the Spotlight Committee. I've explained that this is a very difficult situation that we find ourselves in. Alright, let's go back to Tristan, who is also operating his spotlight.
I am operating my spotlight. I know it's very sad that Steve is on leave. If we have a spotlight failure, it's going to be terrible. But his sidekick, Seb, is around. Sidekick Seb. Maybe that's. Remember, we were trying to come up with a name for him, but we can maybe call him Sidekick Seb and Spotlight Steve. And so Seb is around, and we can maybe help out with these things. Or I suppose we could just get Marcel to have a look. Marcel's generally pretty sharp with technical things, and we'll probably be able to fix most spotlights. given that a spotlight is not a hugely complicated piece of equipment. Certainly doesn't take rocket science to dissect a spotlight and put it back together again. We'll get Trishala onto things. Shame, Trishala's still battling a bit of a cold at the moment, so she's in quarantine in camp. Not on quarantine. That'd be quite funny. Imagine we put her in like a little glass cage. Yeah, we should put her in a glass cage on quarantine, then she really is quarantined. But no, she's in camp and she's been taken off drive so until she's feeling a little bit better. So she's got the sniffles. She's still full of her normal Trishala humour, but it's got a few of the sniffles, so just better to get her well before she drives again. So yeah, shame. She'll hopefully get better soon. She says she's feeling better today than she was yesterday, so that's a good thing. Yeah. I forgot where I was going with this, actually. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's been a very, very... Oh yes, Trishala, no, I now remember. Trishala has the dissection kit, and she can... Yes, okay, got it. Thanks, Kirst. Well done. It's been very, very quiet for us this afternoon. James has actually had quite a nice drive, by the sounds of things. He sounds like he's had, you know, the beta nest, he's had ellies, he's been up and down trees and masts, although I don't know how he climbs that mast. Oh, that's interesting. And he's got something else now to show you, to thoroughly show me up. So let's send you across to whatever it is that's sitting in a tree.
Now, Sebastian doesn't believe me, but there's a bush baby in there. And you can just see its fur move. There we go. Is it a bush? No, it's a genet.
It's a genet, yes.
There we are. Ha! How's that? That cannot be comfortable.
I think it is.
That's its tail hanging out. Yes.
That's what I was saying.
Well spotted, Kirsten.
Okay, makes sense now.
And now it's eyeing us from its lair, unaware that it has given itself away by leaving its tail hanging out. Now, I don't know if it's hunting in here or living in here. I suspect a bit of living, because now is the time for them to come out and do their knocking about the place, going hunting for mouses. Apparently everyone is saying, ah, ooh, wow. That's according to Kirsten. Thank you, Kirsten. Do you think there's more than one in there? I think it's quite a big genet if there isn't more than one. I don't know how that can be comfortable. Of course, animals out here are far more tolerant of discomfort than we are. One only had to watch Tingana sleeping with his bottom lip basically impaled by an Acacia robusta thorn the other day to understand that. D. Otto, I'd love to tell you that I spotted this because I'm such a bush genius, but that is not in fact the case. I spotted it because it happened to be looking out of that little slit as I drove past, and so when the light flicked over, it shone, and so when I saw the shining light, or the shining eye, I knew that there was something in there. Sebastian didn't believe me, but eventually he has been forced to come to the conclusion that I was correct. And I have revelled in the humility that he has had to show. Yes, it is looking. That's what I saw, basically, as we drove past. I mean, this isn't the best genet sighting we've ever had.
Quite a stick there, eh?
It's in a stick, yes. It's basically in a giant stick, which is pretty irritating. In fact, in terms of irritating sticks, this is the apogee. Take care, I really don't know how to answer this question. You say, do they genets have those whiskery, feelery things? Whiskers. They have whiskers. Yes, for sure. I don't know if they have whiskery, feelery things. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Right, well that was a fantastic sighting. Unfortunately there is a stick in the way, but that is just the way of things. On we go. Let's go back across to Tristan, who is driving.
Yes, James waving his spotlight around is sometimes very entertaining. Sometimes he gets very enthusiastic with his spotlighting and waves it around all over the show in a helicopter-style fashion, which I'm pretty sure Spotlight Steve will ban if he sees it because it's probably not very good, but he basically does something like that. And I'm pretty sure you can't really see much when you do it that way, but James has fun doing it, so who are we to let him off the hook? Now we're just coming past. Exactly, great if you've got epilepsy. It's not exactly ideal, is it? Just coming past Inga's quickly, just to see if maybe Tundi's come up this way after a day of heat. You never know, maybe she's coming for a little drink. What's that there? No, that's a duiker. The world's population of duikers on quarantine today. As we've driven past now, we've had 4 or 5 different ones cruising around on the open area, and lots of impalas too, but no sign, I'm afraid, of Tundi. So when she comes, she normally comes up Philemon's and then just comes straight out of this and then across onto the other side. So that's why I was just checking here, just to make sure. She might still be coming. Maybe now that it's gotten a little bit dark, she's decided she'll come out and start scrounging around. Maybe she's on the hunt. You know, with leopards is that they can want to go for water and then all of a sudden they bump into an animal that they want to hunt, and things can take a lot longer than one would think they would. And so maybe she's just being caught up, and that's why she hasn't left the cubs yet. Child of the universe, what has been my rarest? Is it mine personally or safariLIVE's, Kirst? My personal one in terms of rarities. So it's got to be. I mean, are we is it mammals only, or is it just anything? Because if it's anything, birds is the golden pipit. The golden pipit that we saw here is incredibly rare. There's only, I think, at that point was the 14th record of one being seen in South Africa, let alone first for the Sabi Sands. So that would be probably the rarest in terms of an overall animal. You know, if you think about how many years people have been watching birds for, to only have that many records of it is pretty crazy. So that would be my rarest probably bird for this area. But in terms of animal sighting, that striped polecat is a big one. That's one that you don't see very often at all. The leopard playing with a pangolin, lions playing with a pangolin in the Mara, both quite rare, not going to see those every day. What else have I seen? Emerald spotted wood dove laying an egg. That was awesome. Sitting at Lion Sands and we were watching my favorite male lions, in fact even higher up the list than the evokers. I was telling James about them the other day. It was the Hilda's rock males. They were, yes, I think let's rather not speak about them too much because they were not the greatest of male lions, unfortunately. They certainly weren't the prettiest, that's for sure. But anyway, I was watching them and they were doing what they do best, which was sleeping, much like the evokers. And there was a bird, well, this wood dove sitting on its nest next to us, and it was kind of doing nothing, and it was just sitting there. So I thought, well, maybe it's got an egg already that it's incubating. And then the next thing, it kind of fluffled its tail and sort of pulled its tail up a little bit, and out came this egg. So I don't think many people have seen a bird lay an egg, other than obviously chickens, but I mean in the wild it's not something that you see very often, so that was super rare. What else have I seen that's been pretty rare? The 5 leopards together, that's pretty rare. So that was Karula and Co. Had a sighting on Nkoro once where we had lion, leopard, wild dog, and cheetah and hyenas all visible from the same spot, which was pretty crazy. That's rare. So yeah, a few sightings. The more you think about them, the more they start coming to mind. I've been fortunate at safariLIVE. I've had lots of very, very cool sightings that maybe are not super rare, but I mean, are not everyday things. So a lot of leopard interactions, like I say, the pangolin and the lion and the mara. Yeah, some cool stuff. Been lucky, very, very lucky, I must admit. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's been incredibly rare that I've seen. No, that's probably about the rarest things that I've had. Oh, you know what was also rare, actually, now I've remembered another great one, was the bearded robin killing another bearded robin. That was craziness. That was still one of the most hectic things I've ever watched. I mean, I've seen a lot of animals in the process of fighting or something like that, but that was just brutal and traumatic in so many ways. Basically what happened was we had this bearded robin that was in the staff village at Singita, and this robin obviously just went crazy because in the space of about 2 weeks it killed 2 bearded robins and a scrub robin, and it basically got hold of these other birds. There would be a lot of tussling. I mean, we think it was the same one, but it was obviously pretty good at what it did, but it would tussle with these others and then it would just try and pin them down. And then once it pinned them down, it would start pecking the head, and it would pick straight through the top of the head and eventually hit their brains. And then you could see like it would go through the skull, and then it would come out, and the bit of the brain would come out with that last peck, and then the bird would obviously die. And then it would just fly off and leave them there. It was absolutely insane. I know it is gory, but it's rare. I mean, it's not something that you see every day at all. And I'm trying to remember what the whole story was behind it, because we sent it off to a number of people because we had never heard about it, and I think it was the first recorded case of them actually killing their own species in a dominance display. It's amazing to witness. So that was incredibly rare as well. And then there's been lots of rare sightings in terms of like pangolin sightings, aardvarks, various bird species, particularly in the northern Sabi Sands, like long-crested eagle, crowned eagle, white-breasted cuckoo shrike, lesser moorhen, those kind of things. So yeah, lots and lots of rare things. I've been fortunate, like I say. I get lucky with these kind of things often. Anyway, we're going to start heading home. James is on my left-hand side. He's going to be finishing things up. So from me, good night. We shall see you all tomorrow.
I'm just looking for animals this evening. Giving the epileptics a little bit of a hard time. Yes, that's fair enough. We haven't discussed spotlighting technique for a long time, and I think it's appropriate, given that Jamie's leaving us, to demonstrate Jamie's spotlighting technique. When she started here, this is how she spotlighted, and I'm sure it's very effective. But how on earth she managed to keep her shoulder up for the length of time that she did, I don't know. Maybe she did that sort of thing. I used to refer to her as the lighthouse. Apparently I have to continue this for the last minute of the drive. I might have to swap arms. No swapping, apparently. I have to keep it up here like this. Did Jamie never swap arms? I'm sure she did. Kirsten says never, but I don't believe anything comes out of Kirsten's mouth. "30 seconds, everybody." I'm now starting to get a real pain around about here. Elbow is straight, 20 seconds, 20. Thank you for joining us, everyone. It's been a wonderful sunset safari, Sunday sunset safari. We'll see you tomorrow, Monday morning, 0500. Thank you for your questions and comments. Until then, bye-bye.